Once upon a time, in a magical world, 150 million of the best mages and warriors were sent to a hellish labyrinth of shadows. Their only task was to defeat the infernal dragon who was going to destroy the entire mankind. For 10 long years this battle continued, and finally, when only 6 of the greatest mages and warriors remained alive, the MC of this story became the only mage who managed to block all the dragon's powers with a spell. Together with the remaining survivors, he killed the dragon. Without our hero, nothing would have been possible. But he was a commoner without the necessary education required for mages, and yet he managed to create a spell that even the most educated mages were not capable of. After the victory, they began to celebrate and hoped to return home soon. But this infernal dragon managed to spoil their lives even after death. His heart, filled with magical energy, exploded like an atomic bomb and killed the last defenders of humanity. Fortunately, our MC got another chance and went back 13 years. It was at that moment when he was just trying to enter the academy. So what will our hero with a normal education be capable of, and will he be able to save all his friends from the labyrinth of shadows? Let's find out. A few moments ago, he was certain of his death, and now he has found himself in a new body and surrounded by unfamiliar faces. The shock of it all is overwhelming. He barely has time to process it all when a woman commands everyone's attention. She introduces herself as Professor Brigitte from Herbian Academy, and expresses her gratitude to the aspiring students for choosing the institution and informs them about the admission process. As per tradition, out of everyone present, only the top 600 candidates would secure a place, and to determine that, they will face an entrance test, which is to clear a shadow world. The mention of a test causes some panic among the participants, so she assures them that the shadow world is not real, but merely a simulation designed for the exam. However, our hero is not comforted in the slightest. He is still trying to grasp the fact that he has died and is now somehow back in time. The worst part is that his 10 years in that horrific world, along with all the sacrifices and struggles, now seem meaningless. He is right back at where it all started. The test will start in 2 hours, and mentors will be there to guide them. So for now, the MC slips away between the people and finds a quiet corner and tries to process the truth he is now forced to confront. Herbian Academy is not just any school. It was the very institution he had once graduated from 10 years ago. But based on the current year and his experiences in the shadow world, it is clear that he has somehow traveled 13 years back in time. The decade he has spent in that hellish world, the sacrifices made, and the hard-won efforts had been for nothing. The crowd's enthusiastic applause for Brigitte feels like mockery to our poor boy, who silently sheds tears of frustration. A bit later, the MC finds himself sitting on the stairs outside and lost in thought. Around him, people pass by without giving him a second glance. They see him as just another commoner, but our boy does not care. He has too much to think to worry about their opinions. It does not feel like a dream. He remembers everything, including the people, the battles, and the struggles. Just as he sits there lost in his thoughts, a voice calls for him. She is a girl who has been waiting for him at the meeting place, but has come looking for him when he did not show up. She introduces herself as Ladoria von Dorich, a second-year student and our hero's mentor for the test. Ladoria is a brilliant fire magician, a top student in her class, and has reached the prestigious 6th circle. She reassures our boy that the test will be easy. However, at the same time, she did not sugarcoat the reality of the Academy's class system. The rigid hierarchy there means aristocrats claim the prestigious alpha class and receive the best education, while commoners in the beta class, where opportunities for quality education are scarce, regardless of their performance, face neglect and discrimination. Despite this, Ladoria turns the conversation toward the shadow world itself. She asks if the MC knows what it truly is, as she is eager to assess his knowledge. Our boy already knows it all too well. In his previous life, he has fought in the real shadow worlds. These are parallel worlds made from past events and are the greatest threat to humanity, which appears every year in countless numbers. They have different levels of difficulty, with higher ranks being more dangerous. They spread endlessly and cover land in deadly black fog, which makes it essential to destroy them. In continuation of their talk, Ladoria explains the 2 dominant forces in the shadow world to our hero. One is the League of Western Kingdoms, and the other, their current affiliation, that is Herbian Academy. These 2 factions are locked in constant competition in which they clear shadow worlds and claim valuable soul stones in the process. There is a third force as well, but Ladoria decides our boy does not need to learn about it just yet. The MC, however, already has a firm grasp on the mechanics of shadow worlds. These parallel universes echo past events and repeat them endlessly unless stopped by raiders. Clearing a shadow world means changing its outcome by achieving what had been impossible in the original timeline. For instance, if one side lost a war in history, the shadow world's goal would be to rewrite that defeat into victory. Once this purpose is achieved, the world dissolves. It is a dangerous but critical task, and at the forefront are the League of Western Kingdoms and Herbian Academy. With the basics now covered, Lidoriya and our hero head to Herbian Academy's main building. After passing through the routine entrance check, they step inside. Our boy scans the surroundings and looks unimpressed to Lidoriya, and upon asking, he just jokes about having seen more impressive buildings before. As they walk further, they encounter an unwelcome surprise by the name of Elheim, who is accompanied by a young woman. The MC instantly recognizes him as a water element magician and polar opposite to Lidoriya's fiery nature. The two magicians could not be more incompatible as they glare at each other and start exchanging insults while wearing a forced smile that fools no one. Their verbal sparring drags on long enough that someone could leisurely finish breakfast. Finally, Elheim shifts his attention to our hero and scans his profile on a tablet. He smirks upon discovering that our boy is a commoner and wastes no time using that fact to insult Lidoriya further. However, in the midst of his mocking, Lidoriya learns something important. Their students are in the same group of 4 and will compete against each other. This sparks a heated debate over whose student will win. Elheim is confident his student, Azest Kingscrown, a prodigious ice element magic knight with exceptional swordsmanship and arcane magic, will dominate. Lidoriya, on the other hand, is not so sure the MC can stand a chance against someone like her. Meanwhile, Elheim turns his ridicule toward our hero and advises him to abandon the entrance exam altogether, because in his opinion, it is better for him than ending up in the beta class. After delivering his insulting remarks, Elheim feels satisfied with feeding his own ego and now starts to leave with Azest. As they walked away, our boy notes Azest's resemblance to an older version of herself he has encountered in his past life. Moments later, an announcement summons the participants to the entrance test site. Lidoriya, who is still fuming from Elheim's insults, scolds the MC for his calmness. Yet our hero, with a quiet confidence, assures her he is ready. As per the summon by the announcement, Lidoriya and our boy reach the specified place, and the MC cannot help but be curious about the mysterious gate to the shadow world. As he paces around it, Lidoriya hopes that he won't embarrass her by acting out. Just then, other members of their group also arrive, and our boy is stunned to see Romantica, someone he knows from his past life. His heart skips a beat as he rushes toward her, but he quickly realized how awkward his reaction was in the heat of the moment. In that second, though, he cannot hide the relief that washes over him. He had been devastated when he lost her in his past life. He had screamed, cried, and felt helpless. But now he is back in time before the tragedy struck and has been given a second chance. So he promises himself he will never let those he cares about suffer again. Before he can dwell too much on his thoughts, an announcement rings. They are to face their entrance exam, set in the 18th level shadow world, Arenstein Plains Ace. The task is simple yet challenging, which is to reach the finish line, 8 kilometers away, faster than the other contestants. Magic and attacks on opponents are allowed, and safety measures are in place to reduce the pain by 80%, though fatal injuries in real life or a surrender will result in expulsion. Our hero's teammate Treviri finds the task relatively easy, especially compared to Group B, who have to face a troll. On top of that, he only sees Romantica as his true competition, and the MC and Azest are just mere existences to him. But that does not matter much as they all enter the shadow world to begin the race. As they stand at the starting line, the MC cannot help but wonder about Azest. He thinks there is a possibility that she, too, has returned like him. But when he tries to communicate with her, she just calls him weak. Our boy knows his magic and strength are lacking, but hearing her say it like that stings. Azest insists that he does not know his own weaknesses, and that his magic level is the lowest possible, and his physical strength barely above average. According to her, he can only handle a 6th level shadow world. Our hero feels as if she is trying to provoke him, but she reassures him she won't target him. As for the reason, she does not take pleasure in fighting someone as weak as him. The race begins, and the MC finds himself neck and neck with Romantica, as they both push hard to keep up the pace. Meanwhile, Azest and Treviri are busy in their own battle. As they run, Romantica steps on a leaf and remarks on how cute it is. Our boy remembers how she always has a soft spot for cute things, but she reminds him to focus on the race instead of her. Our hero points out that they are both in danger of being eliminated at this rate, which leads to some light bickering between them. Finally, Romantica has had enough of it and decides to use her trump card, Arrow Sweep, which is a powerful spell from the 2nd circle of magic. The progress of the grand entrance exam of the Herbian Academy is being closely monitored by higher officials, with updates relaying through a magic circle. According to them, Groups A and C have already completed their examinations without issue, which leaves only Groups D and F in action. So far, things seem to be going smoothly. This year's applicants are remarkably strong, even more so than last year's impressive batch. However, the highlight this time is the presence of a magic knight, who represents true nobility. Many of the higher-ups feel sorry for our boy for ending up in the same group as someone so exceptional. Meanwhile, the race of Group D is heating up. Treveri feels confident in his strength and initially thinks that the win is his for the taking. But his confidence shakes when he notices Azest pulling ahead with speed of light. His eyes scan the surroundings, and he spots a familiar breeze and immediately recognizes it as Romantica's magic. It looks like she is attempting to blow him back to the starting line. Yet, with his heavy armor weighing over 200 pounds, he is confident that she cannot possibly succeed as long as he holds the ground tight. Lost in his overconfidence, Treveri barely notices Azest charging further ahead while effortlessly passing through Romantica's winds. The sight brings him back to reality. He is witnessing the famous magic knight in action. Before he can react, a rumbling sound from the trees makes it clear what Romantica has been aiming for all along. But it is too late. Poor Treveri is officially eliminated from the Shadow World, with his overconfidence proving to be his downfall. As for Romantica and our boy, they are following behind in the race, though not by much. Romantica is disappointed that Azest has escaped her earlier attack and shifts her focus to the MC. She sees him as an easy target because to her he is just a commoner who does not belong in the same league. However, she decides to give him a chance to surrender first, but to her surprise, he refuses with a carefree smile on his face. This makes Romantica even more irritated, and she unleashes another magic wind attack as she aims to test our hero's endurance. The explosion that follows is powerful, and Romantica enjoys the moment as she is convinced no one can withstand such an attack at close range, especially not a magician weaker than her level. Yet, when the wind finally settles, her confidence, or more likely overconfidence, shatters brutally as our hero is not only unharmed but now stands behind her, calm as ever. And as wise as he is, instead of showing hostility, he compliments her skills and acknowledges her power as a second-circle magician. Romantica, however, can only stare in shock. The MC now begins to explain Romantica's shortcomings. Her spell was impressively fast and powerful, no doubt, but it lacked precision. She focused so much on speed that she neglected the airflow, which caused her attack to turn off course with just a slight adjustment from him. Even so, Romantica cannot understand how he completely cancelled out her spell. He explains that he used an inverse operation spell to counter it, but she refuses to believe him. After all, he is just a first-circle magician. Undoing her magic should be impossible for someone of his level, especially since such a feat is typically reserved for magicians far more advanced than her. Now she is more determined than ever to prove him wrong, and in order to do that, she fires a first-circle wind spell at him. Our boy, however, instead of flinching, calmly adjusts the air around him. And to Romantica's shock, all the magical arrows miss their target and fall harmlessly to the ground. As if nothing has happened, he advises her to improve her control over magic if she wants to become a stronger magician. This makes her feel incompetent and even more frustrated, and she wants to try again, but our hero repeats his advice to focus on improving her control. Now her anger boils over because obviously it is hard to digest for her that a mere commoner could outmatch her like this. The thought of him being in a league of his own stings deeply and brings tears of frustration to her eyes. The MC, however, is not trying in the slightest to humiliate her. He admires her strength and believes that no one in their class can defeat her except for one person, but he also knows strength alone is not enough. His memories of that tragic past life remind him why he cannot let things play out the same way. To ensure Romantica grows stronger, he needs to keep moving forward as well. So, he starts explaining the 3 things she has not noticed. First, he reveals he can use magic, though weakly. Second, she was never his ultimate goal. And lastly, he used a simple spell called Grease. Romantica recognizes it as basic first-circle magic, which is designed to reduce friction and make surfaces slippery. At first, she does not understand why he cast it, but then it clicks to her that he is trying to make her trip. What confuses her more is that the ground is not even slippery. Our boy then tells her that the shadow world they are in is a race, not a magic battle. He wants to know if she understands the reason behind his use of that spell. To Romantica, he seems like just a beginner, so she thought the spell did not work correctly. In order to make her fully understand, our hero patiently explains the law of action and reaction to her. If someone pushes him with greater force from behind, he will move forward. Then he asked her to imagine an immense force, like an explosion, pushing him forward. Romantica finally understands that force is a fireball. However, she gets horrified by the thought of him being injured by that. But the MC remains calm as ever, and reminds her of her own words that death does not exist in the shadow world. And to prove his point right, he launches the fireball at her. She gets hit by it and collapses to the ground, stunned. As she lies there, she cannot help but wonder where this strange person came from. Meanwhile, Azest, who is leading the race, senses our boy's presence behind her and provokes him to step up and fight. Azest and our hero are in the middle of a race. Azest knows the stakes very well. If she does not make her move now, he will catch up and surpass her. The finish line is just ahead, but if she wants to win, she has to take him down right away. To make things worse, Romantica is nowhere to be seen, which can only mean one thing alone. The MC has already beaten her. It's time for her to go all out, so she summons all her power and casts the spell of magic arrows. By doing that, magic circles shine in the sky as they get ready to cause destruction. At the same time, Azest also declares that whatever trick our hero used against Romantica won't work on her. Yet, instead of fear, our boy seems impressed by her strength. He admires her skills but also recognizes her overconfidence. As unshaken as he always is, he relies on the same inverse operation spell he previously used. This makes him analyze the mechanics of Azest's spells and seize control of most of her magic arrows, which he uses to turn them against her. Azest, on the other hand, also realizes that she is losing ground. If she lets this drag on, he will have the time to drain her remaining energy. She knows she needs to act fast, so she prepares for an all-or-nothing attack. The MC, however, anticipates her move and adjusts his course just in time. A massive explosion occurs, with lightning striking his shoulder, arm, and leg. As the sky gets clear, Azest begins to understand how he managed to defeat Romantica. Meanwhile, our hero, though wounded and bleeding, remains focused. His attention is now on recalculating and neutralizing 4 of Azest's remaining spells, while assessing the distance to the finish line. Azest is also not willing to give up either and adapts another strategy. If numbers cannot overwhelm him, she will take him down with sheer force. Her sharp mind impresses our boy, but he knows her approach is flawed. Their next clash comes in a burst of energy as their attacks collide with explosive force. Using the moment of chaos, the MC employs his inverse operation spell once again and skillfully redirects his path. Another explosion follows after that, and Azest suddenly realizes our hero's true intent, that he is using the blast to propel himself forward. This is now a do-or-die situation for her, and she feels desperate to stop him. As she swings her sword at him, in an attempt to strike him down mid-air, it gets too late as our boy reaches the finish line and secures victory from Group D in the Shadow World. The professors are all gathered in the meeting room and are deep in discussion. Another year has passed, and yet again, no commoners manage to secure a spot in the prestigious Alpha class. Among them is Professor Fergman Nefleka, who strongly believes in hierarchy, as if his own rather round figure somehow makes him qualified to judge others. In his eyes, the Alpha class is a privilege meant only for aristocrats, while commoners should just be thankful to even enter the academy. The dean of the academy, Justin, then takes command to announce the winner of the entrance examination, though the result is no surprise. It's Desire Herman. The name of our boy rings a bell for many, as they recall he was in the same group with Azest, the skilled magic knight. But the notion of a mere commoner defeating someone they praise so much is hard for them to swallow. Many questions arise with Dean Justin among them, particularly focused on how someone like the MC even gained admission to the academy. Brigitte takes the responsibility that it is on her recommendation that our hero was admitted. She explains that she met him by chance at an orphanage and was struck by his determination and long-standing passion for magic. Though he initially struggled as he was barely able to form first circle magic, she sees potential in him that others overlook. Dean Justin now calls for the pre-examination test results of our boy, which confirm his initial lack of skill. Upon hearing that, Fergman's smile grows wider. To him, this shows how incapable the MC is. But Brigitte challenges them to review the performance recordings from our boys' group final exam, something most of them skipped, just because they assumed Azest would naturally dominate our hero. As the recordings play, the professors react in shock. In the clips, the MC displays an exceptional understanding of high-level spells, a strategic mind that manipulates algorithms with ease, and combat skills rivaling that of a seasoned warrior. His psychological skills on top of that leave even the most skeptical professors in awe. Now all eyes turn to Dean Justin for his verdict. Brigitte insists that our boy must be placed in the Alpha class, given his extraordinary performance. Fergman, however, argues against it and cites the Academy rules that require at least second circle magic for entry. He tries to manipulate the others that placing our hero in Alpha class will cause unrest among the other students. Some of the other dumb professors support him, which gives Fergman even more confidence. Brigitte, on the other hand, is unbothered by their racist opposition. She accuses them of rejecting the MC not for his abilities, but because of his status as a commoner. Her words land perfectly, almost as if she had read Fergman's mind, and he, just like the loser he is, accuses her of insulting him. Before the argument can go further, Dean Justin thankfully intervenes. He decides that the matter will be settled by voting, as neither side seems willing to back down. Meanwhile, at the academy, students gather to check their exam results. Our boy is also among them, and he scans the list. As expected, his name appears under Beta class, which is the standard placement for commoners. He accepts the result without complaint and begins to plan his next steps. But before that, he notices Romantica is also there, and her name is listed just below his. She stands frozen and looks completely shocked. The beta classroom is a complete mess. Dust is all over, spider webs are in the corners, and it smells awful. Romantica cannot believe how unlucky she is. She thought it would at least be a decent place to study, but now she is so frustrated she feels like crying. As if the room's condition is not enough, the lessons are boring and include stuff she already knows, and the professor is not even someone worth remembering. To make matters worse, she has to endure this alongside the MC. The thought of sharing a class with him is a bitter pill to swallow. She knows she has only herself to blame for being placed in the beta class, but that does not make it any easier to accept. Our boy, who has beaten a magic knight, seems completely focused on the lecture, and it annoys her even more. Sure, he has talent, but in her eyes he still sucks. Her frustration gets the best of her, and she slams her desk, which draws stares from the other students. Meanwhile, our hero's thoughts mirror some of Romantica's concerns, though his are less personal. Commoners being dumped into beta class every year is a familiar story to him, a sad pattern that wastes a lot of potential. With limited resources and chances, these students are set up to fail. He resolves to change that, and the only way to rewrite their dark futures is to help as many beta students as possible advance to alpha class. He is not just daydreaming about it but has a plan to make it happen. Now back to Romantica. Her anger session is interrupted by a boy who is accompanied by a few friends. He seems to know her, but she is too wrapped up in her own sadness to care. His friends, however, don't take kindly to her indifferent attitude. But the boy calms them down and apologizes for not introducing himself properly. He is Donetta Hadun, a freshman like her, and he is recruiting for his club. Romantica, who is uninterested, gives him a half-hearted smile and wishes him luck. But Donetta is not about to give up so easily. He is here for a reason, and that reason is her. The presence of alpha students in the beta classroom starts to draw attention. Even the MC notices and watches their conversation. He then puts a letter in his pocket, as though he is plotting something. Back to Donetta, who, despite his charm, cannot hide his dislike for the Academy's decision to place an aristocrat like Romantica in the beta class. In his eyes, commoners are nothing more than parasites, and the thought of someone like her sharing space with them is unacceptable to him. Romantica, on the other hand, masks her irritation with a polite smile as she asks him to get to the point. Donetta does not beat around the bush. He reveals that he is part of the Blue Moon, the Academy's most elite club, led by the renowned upperclassman Elheim. Membership in this club is a golden ticket to the alpha class, and he believes Romantica is talented enough to join. Romantica hesitates slightly. The offer is tempting. She knows being part of the Blue Moon means immediate transfer to the alpha class. Yet, for some reason, she cannot bring herself to accept it outright. Donetta, on the other hand, is not offering it out of kindness, though. In exchange for recommending her, this boy wants her to be his girlfriend. Romantica's day takes an unexpected turn when Donetta, someone she hardly knows, suddenly asks her to be his girlfriend. They have never really talked, and the only time he noticed her was during the entrance exam when he saw her in the reception hall and could not take his eyes off her. His sudden confession surprises her, and she does not know how to react. To process all of it, Romantica needs time, and Donetta agrees to give her some space. But before that, he hands her a sword-shaped container called Kemuvin, which is a traditional token of affection among warrior families in his homeland. As if that is not enough, he swings it open to reveal a chain inside. Though she finds this gift from out of nowhere overwhelming, Romantica accepts it without much argument. After bidding her farewell, Donetta leaves with his friends, who, until the very end, does not miss a chance to insult the poor beta-class students. Once alone, Romantica stares at the chain and admires its design. But her peace does not last long. The sudden appearance of someone startles her so much that she falls off her chair. It is him, the MC who always seems to be around her at the most inconvenient times. He offers to help her up, but she just finds him irritating. Once she regains her composure, she demands to know why he is there. Our hero makes the same offer as Donetta, but Romantica immediately rejects him that she no intention of dating him even in a million years. The MC, however, is not talking about romance, though Romantica does not care to listen. She is too annoyed to give a care to his intentions. Our boy notices her bad mood and asks why she seems so upset. Romantica does not answer his question, but instead asks him which group he would choose. One that guarantees success, or one led by a nobody from the beta class. Her words hit our hero hard. He knows the weight of her decision all too well, how this one wrong choice will change her life for the worse. But Romantica, unaware of the truth, simply wants him to leave her alone and find someone else to bother. Our boy, however, ignores her hostility and places a letter on her desk. He tells her she can do whatever she wants with it, but advises her to dispose of it carefully since it contains a secret she would not want others to discover. Romantica quickly opens the letter, and her expression changes as she reads its contents. When she finishes, the MC asks if she is ready to talk now, but instead of answering, she slams her desk in frustration. He warns her to keep quiet if she does not want unwanted attention, but Romantica's focus is elsewhere. She demands to know how he has discovered her secret. Our boy does not offer an explanation. He simply acknowledges that he knows why she is in the beta class, and hints at the truth Romantica has been so desperate to hide. Our hero then suggests they step outside for a private conversation, as he wants to make sure no one can overhear them. As soon as they are outside, Romantica demands to know if he has told anyone her secret. He assures her that he has not shared it with anyone, though he does mention that some professors are aware of it, and that is the very reason why she has been placed in the beta class. Romantica is stunned. She cannot understand how the professors know about her secret, especially since the academy is so far from her home in Prilicha. Our boy points out that she should not underestimate the reach of Herbian's intelligence network. He shares that her family, who were originally merchants from Prilicha, became wealthy through trade and bought a baron's title by taking the name von Eru when she was just 4. However, some professors still judge them for their commoner roots despite their noble status. To make matters worse, Professor Fergman, the head of the Academy's Blue Moon Party, is one of the few who knows her background, and on top of that, the professor despises commoners. But despite this, Romantica still wants to cling to the hope that Donetta will protect her. Our hero, however, reminds her of Donetta's attitude toward commoners, which challenges her to reconsider her loyalties. After making all the points, our boy puts the choice in her hands, but Romantica takes the chance to question his ability to run a club effectively, especially since he uses threats to get members. A valid point, our hero admits, but he counters with an intriguing proposal, and according to that, she can join his party for 1 month, and if it does not work out, she can leave without any strings attached. Though Romantica does not trust him, she knows she has no choice but to stick to his offer. Still, she cannot resist making it clear how much she despises him, which the MC is already well aware of. A bit later, the duo find themselves in the cafeteria. Romantica complains about the poor quality of the bread but eats heartily anyway. Our hero, on the other hand, having already finished his meal, finds the bread tolerable. She then brings up a crucial point, that in order to form a society, they need at least 3 members. She also highlights the challenge of recruiting anyone since most freshmen naturally gravitate toward the already established, influential parties in the beta class. Her logic leaves our boy momentarily speechless, which makes her assume she has him cornered. But to her surprise, he was not at a loss for words and smiles instead. It was because her genuine concern for the party's success, even after all her initial complaints which felt like teamwork to him. This makes Romantica feel embarrassed, so she claims that she is only offering advice for her own benefit since she will have to endure this party for a month. The MC assures her not to worry, and reveals that he already has a 3rd candidate in mind and knows a professor who will approve their party. Now, Romantica's interest moves to the mysterious unknown candidate. After finishing the meal, they make their way to the training grounds. The area is poorly maintained and is shared by both alpha and beta classes for combined lessons, and our hero leads Romantica there to meet their potential 3rd member, Pram Schneiser. Pram, a beta-class swordsman in our boy's past life, survived 9 years in the shadow world. His natural talent and refined swordsmanship were extraordinary, and his stabbing techniques alone were enough to rank him as a swordmaster. Romantica wonders what Pram looks like, and the MC spots him and points him out to her. Romantica cannot stop overreacting about how ridiculously cute Pram is. The MC, on the other hand, has not seen him in that light before, but still agrees with her, though not with the same level of enthusiasm. Romantica, however, is plotting ways to adopt the cutie pie right then and there. Poor Pam is completely unaware of her dark intentions and sneezes from all the attention. Pram is now lost in deep thoughts as he tries to choose a weapon. After much contemplation, he finally goes with a large sword. Our boy, who has been observing Pram for a while, is taken aback at his rather odd choice. He remembers Pram as someone who prefers a rapier, and now he is wielding something that looks like it weighs more than he does. Pram has to use this sword to face an opponent from the alpha class. And naturally, the boy, being an alpha, takes his time to insult Pram first. Finally, the duel begins, and Pram's movements immediately stand out as they are fast, yet at the same time unpolished. To our hero's trained eye, it looks like that Pram lacks strategy, as he is only merely swinging his sword aimlessly. The oversized sword is not helping either. It's like watching someone try to fight with a weapon they picked up as a joke. The alpha student, on the other hand, presses with attacks one after another and forces Pram onto the defense. Pram tries to find an opening, but his opponent is 1 step ahead. What looks like a chance to counterattack turns out to be a trap, and with a final decisive blow, Pram's sword is knocked out of his hands. The duel ends, and so does any hope of Pram saving face. Romantica, who has been watching the entire duel, is unimpressed. The strong and skilled Pram that the MC described is nowhere to be found. Instead, she sees someone who easily tires himself out with his own movements, something even a beginner would not do. Though she still thinks he is adorable, she cannot overlook his lack of competence. So for the betterment of the party, she suggests they move on and find someone else. But before the MC can protest, the alpha student, out of nowhere, rushes towards Pram with a punch that screams pure rage. Our boy, seeing what is about to happen, runs to stop the disaster. The alpha class bully keeps hitting our cute little Pram without any mercy, and the MC quickly runs over to stop him. But instead of stopping, the boy gets angrier at the sight of another beta interfering. He even points his sword at the MC to back off. But our hero ignores his cowardly threats and checks on Pram to make sure he is all right. Then, he turns to the boy and calls him out for being so petty and stooping so low just to boost his ego because someone from the beta class outdid him for a moment. This only makes the boy angrier. In a fit of rage, he swings his sword and aims to hit Pram again. But before it can land, our hero steps in and uses his own arm to block the blow. The blade slashes his hand and breaks apart. The boy freezes, not out of guilt but shock. He cannot believe the MC stopped his sword, which was swinging so fast. Still, instead of apologizing, he acts like a spoilt brat and does not want to take responsibility for everything he has done. Our boy is not interested in arguing, though. He simply wants him to stop since the duel is already over. But the MC's steady and piercing gaze strikes something in the boy. It reminds him of the disapproving look he once got from a family member as a child, back when he cruelly hurt a commoner. The bully, now a little shaken, backs off and turns to leave. Before he can go, the MC tells him to thank his luck for no professors being around to see his actions. Finally, it's just our boy, Pram, and Romantica left behind. Both Pram and Romantica look worried as they glance at the MC's bleeding hand. The trio is now back in the dorm, and Pram works on treating our hero's injuries. Romantica is also there to nag him for picking a fight with an alpha class student. But, as crazy as Romantica is, she cannot help but find it amusing that he is covered in blood for the karma of his actions during the entrance exam. Meanwhile, our adorable Pram, who is the complete opposite of Romantica, meaning the sweet and innocent boy he is, finishes up his work by tying a neat bow on the bandage. He feels bad for messing up our hero's daily routine by hurting his arm and apologizes. The MC assures him it was his own choice and there is no need to feel bad. Even so, Pram insists on making up for it. It takes some time, but eventually, our boy convinces him that he should not feel guilty for something he willingly did. Time passes quickly, and as our hero and Romantica prepare to leave, something unexpected happens. Pram, with all his sincerity, wants to call our boy master. The MC tries to talk him out of it, but he just won't budge, and our boy finally gives in. Pram also eagerly offers to support him in any way possible, and our hero, who was waiting for this opportunity from the very start, wastes no time and invites him to join his club. But what is even more surprising is that Pram agrees immediately without even a second thought. The trio now stands outside the professor's office to get approval for their club. When they finally go in, they see none other than Professor Brigitte, who is the one our hero had been so sure about. They all sit down on the sofas, and the MC thanks Brigitte for meeting with them. Brigitte, in response, skips the formalities. Apparently, the MC wowed her during the exam. For the first time, she saw him use magic efficiently, which is apparently a miracle worth documenting. She cannot stop talking about how he defeated Azest, the Academy's star contender, using not just magic, but brains and brawn. And not to forget, she taught him everything he now knows after enduring his endless whining. Now that he has grown into this capable young man, she cannot help but feel a sense of betrayal. When the reminiscing is finally over, the conversation shifts to the reason they had come, that is, our hero's reason to form a club. The MC explains his ambitious goal of advancing all his members to Alpha Class through the Academy's advancement exam. Brigitte knows as well as he does that this is almost impossible. Meanwhile, Pram gets a bit curious what the exam actually involves. And now our boy dives into the explanation. The advancement exam is no joke. A tournament where 30 students from each year are sent into a 5th-level shadow world to complete a deadly mission, and only 9 survive to claim the coveted title of single ranker. Our hero, however, is not just aiming for survival. He wants his team of beta students to rank in the top 9. Romantica, on the other hand, was far from convinced, and to her it just sounds like an absurd and impossible plan. Her point is also valid that even if luck somehow got them into the competition, the top 30 are almost always dominated by elite students from powerful alpha class parties, which leaves betas like them as easy prey for them. Even Brigitte could not deny the validity of her argument and acknowledges the harsh reality they are up against. But the MC has no intention of backing down either. He insists that aiming for a single ranker is not just about proving themselves, but rather it's about challenging the Academy's unfair system. If a beta class party can succeed, it will shatter the long, baseless tradition that betas lack talent and don't deserve proper lessons. Our boy's enthusiasm amuses Brigitte, and she agrees to let him form the club. But, because she is not about to let anyone jump into this madness blind, she turns to Romantica and Pram to confirm that they are still bold enough to go along with our hero's ambitious plan after hearing everything. The Herbian Academy's training area is amazing, with a mock arena and a virtual zone that look like something out of a dream. Romantica cannot help but stare in awe, but sadly for her, these state-of-the-art facilities are only for the elite alpha students. She follows her group to the top floor of the training center, which looks like it has not seen a broom or a person in centuries. Everything is covered in dust, and the air practically screams abandoned. As they wander the room, something brushes against Pram's foot, and he screams so loudly as he has just seen a ghost. Our boy tries to calm him down that it's probably just a rat. But the mention of rats now makes Romantica panic. Before she can run away, the MC gives her a push into the room. The place looks worse the more they see of it. Our hero turns on the lights, and the room's appearance does not improve much. Then, as if things cannot get worse, the lights go out, and they are left in darkness. Glowing eyes appear all around them, and it does not take long for them to figure out the room's true residents are rats, and lots of them. Romantica lets out a scream so loud it probably scares the poor rats just as much as it scares her teammates. In her panic, she jumps onto our boy and clings to him like her life depends on it. Pram, on the other hand, gets frozen as if someone has stolen his soul. The MC tries to peel Romantica off him, but she clings even tighter because obviously she is not ready to face the rat army. Once the chaos settles down, our boy makes a decision that leaves Romantica speechless and not in a good way. Instead of leaving, he announces they will block the rat holes and clean the room. Romantica demands to leave, but our hero, as always, ignores her protests and goes right ahead with his plan. So, with no other choice, Romantica gets to work, and the still shaken Pram gets to sleep. After what feels like an eternity, the room is finally clean. Pram eventually wakes up as well from sleep and rejoins them. By then, Romantica is ready to collapse and call it a day. But our hero decides it's the perfect time to start training. Earlier, when Brigitte asks Romantica if she really wants to join the MC's party, she hesitates at first. His goals are insane, and she knows plenty of people are stronger than her. But somehow, she convinces herself to say yes. Now standing in that rat-free but still horrible room, she cannot help but regret it. Still, she refuses to back down. If our boy wants to drag her into madness, she will go down fighting, probably screaming too. After finally cleaning up the disaster of a room, our hero and Romantica realize it is much bigger than it looks and fits perfectly for both training and work. Our boy then finds a ball among the junk and has a brilliant idea. He hands it to Romantica with the declaration that she will use it to practice magic and improve her speed. Romantica, however, does not want to, as according to her, her speed is perfectly fine. The MC admits that her speed is not terrible, but it is not exactly a compliment. Other students her level are already leagues ahead, and she needs to step it up if she wants to compete. Plus, her situation is tougher than theirs, so good enough just is not good enough anymore. So for that, he suggests she try nonverbal magic, which is a tricky technique that skips the whole chanting process and allows the user to cast spells instantly. Romantica, on the other hand, finds the idea ridiculous. She's only ever read about it in books, and books don't exactly scream achievable. But our hero is convinced she can do it. After all, he has seen her pull it off before in his past life, though of course he conveniently leaves that part out. When Romantica still hesitates, our boy ups the stakes. Either try the new technique or get ready to snack on the rock-hard bread. Romantica finally agrees. The MC draws 2 circles on the ground, one around her and one farther away. And her mission is to move the ball from one circle to the other, using only air magic with the strict rules of no touching, no throwing, and no excuses. Romantica stares at the ball like it has personally offended her. Our boy reminds her how she used wind magic earlier while cleaning. She vaguely remembers, but instead of focusing on her magic, she remembers about breaking stuff and getting yelled at. Still, she gives it a shot. After a few failed attempts, the ball finally moves with a grand total of a few centimeters. But she shines like she has just won a trophy and turns to our hero and waits for praise. The MC gives her the compliment she is so clearly waiting for, and suddenly she is all smiles and ready to keep trying. Meanwhile, Pram waits for his turn patiently, like the good boy he is. Unlike Romantica, he is filled with excitement and is ready to tackle whatever our boy throws his way. But our hero surprises him by saying there is not much to teach him. Pram, already a top-tier swordsman, can probably ace his advancement test blindfolded. Even in the prestigious Alpha class, only a few are up to his level. But there is one thing that is on the MC's mind for some time, and that is Pram's choice of weapon. In the past, Pram wielded a silver rapier with amazing precision and cut through enemies. Now he has a heavy sword, which seems about so ordinary. Our boy finally gathers the courage and asks why he has stopped using the rapier. Pram, suddenly acting like he has something to hide, dodges our hero's question and instead asks how he even knows about the rapier. But the MC presses for answers, and Pram avoids the question and instead suggests they head somewhere else. That evening, the MC quietly follows Pram to his room, but Pram seems lost in thought. He is worried about leaving Romantica behind, though it is clear she is far too excited about the task our boy has given her to even care. As they walk, Pram reveals something painful. He does not know who his father is. All he knows is that his father is a nobleman, his mother a commoner, and he is the child of that forbidden relationship. Poor Pram feels like a mistake. What he wants to show our hero is something his father has left behind. When they reach the room, Pram steps away for a moment and then returns with a rapier. He hands it to the MC, who cannot help but notice how light it is. Almost too light for something meant for fighting. His eyes also catch the faint writing on the handle of it. Then Pram begins to share his sad story. He found it when he was just 6 years old. He learnt that it was from his father, and from that moment on, he used to train with it, all while hoping that one day he can become a son worthy of his father's love. But his mother, who was always worried and protective, tried to stop him. She begged him not to search for a father who won't come. Even in her final moments, she kept the truth from him and never told him his father's name. After listening to it, our boy feels a deep sadness for Pram and realizes how much Pram's mother has protected him. In a world that sees children like Pram as shameful, she shielded him from that cruelty. And yet, despite her warnings, Pram came to the Herbian Academy, full of nobles, while hoping to finally find out who his father is. For all these years, the rapier has been Pram's only clue, the only thing that connects him to the man he longs to know. But now, with our hero holding it, Pram's anger spills over. He calls it a useless, cheap iron sword, just another cruel reminder of how little his father has left behind. He feels betrayed by the man he has dreamed of and by himself for ever believing that the rapier means anything more than a broken promise. He throws it away while tears stream down his face as he mourns his mother's loss and the emptiness of never knowing his father. Later that night, the MC sits under the stars. His heart is heavy with what he has just learned. All this time, he did not realize how much pain Pram was carrying. He longs to help him, but the weight of it all seems too much. As memories from past life begin to stir, he remembers seeing Pram with a rapier before, and something about it clicks. That silver rapier is not just a keepsake, but it holds a meaning that Pram has yet to understand. Our boy is now desperately searching for Pram, who is busy with his large sword. When he finally finds him, our hero asks if he can see his rapier, but Pram does not want to talk about it. The MC can tell it is a tough subject for Pram, so he apologizes for making it harder, but still asks to see it. However, Pram refuses, not because he does not want to show it, but because he has already sold it. Later, our boy finds himself wandering the Herbian Academy commercial district. It has been a long time since he has visited this ever-bustling place, and in his past life, he used to come here to buy things. Now he is with Pram, who leads him down a narrow alley to a shop called Woojukun's Antique Shop. A banner outside reads that there are no refunds for any reason, which makes our hero think the merchant is a bit greedy. As they enter the shop, Pram makes it clear to the MC that he will never wield a sword again. They then walk through a hallway with heavy security, and at the end of it, they knock on a gate, and a barbarian guard lets them in. Once they get inside, they meet an older man whose name is Woojukun, and he is the shop owner. He recognizes Pram at first glance and gets straight to the point. Our boy explains that he wants to buy back what Pram has sold earlier. Woojukun reminds him of the strict no-refund policy, but our hero clarifies that he is not asking for a refund, but he wants to purchase it. The two of them share an awkward laugh, and Woojukun places the rapier on the table. At the same time, he mentions that it does not look much like a normal sword. It is light and oddly shaped. He calls it a kemuvin, which is a special item used by nobles as gifts for their lovers. The price is set at 40 silver pieces, which angers Pram since he has sold it for just 90 bronze pieces, without knowing it was a kemuvin. Woojukun defends his actions and puts all the blame on Pram that it was him who asked to value it as a sword, which made it look like a cheap weapon. Before things get too heated, the MC intervenes and stops Pram from arguing further. Woojukun, however, is unapologetic and hints that he would have charged even more if he had known how to open the kemuvin. Our boy pays the price and takes the rapier. He then hands it to Pram, who takes it reluctantly. Though he has no interest in using it, our hero asks him to hold on to it for a while. He then instructs Pram to press his nail into a groove on the handle and try to press it down. Our hero tells Pram to wield the rapier, and as Pram follows his instructions, the slim blade transforms into a beautiful sword. It feels almost weightless, as if it is made of air itself, because this is no ordinary sword, but it was crafted from blancium, a rare and indestructible metal tougher than steel. While Wujukun failed to recognize the sword's true nature, even though he knew it was a kamuvan, our boy immediately understands. This is the same sword Pram wielded in his past life. After getting what they need, the MC suggests they leave, but Wujukun is not ready to let them go. Now aware of the sword's incredible value, he wants to keep it to himself. The barbarian guard follows his master's orders and blocks their way with a threatening look while showing off his giant sword. But our hero remains calm and states that he has paid for the sword, and their deal is done. Wujukun, however, is driven by greed and refuses to accept that. His anger grows as he insists they cannot leave, even if it means using force. The guard reminds the MC of Donape from his past life, and he is not the one to back down either. The giant barbarian obeys his master's command and swings his massive sword at our hero. With quick reflexes, our boy blocks the attack and steps back to safety. At that moment, Pram steps forward and stands protectively in front of his master. Our cutie warns the guard not to take another step or risk facing harsh consequences. Despite Pram's confidence, the MC cannot help but worry for him. Even in such a tense situation, he teases Pram about his earlier vow never to use a sword again. Pram gets embarrassed but readies himself for the fight. The barbarian's heavy strikes come down hard, but Pram moves fast and dodges them with ease. Our hero notices something that Pram's stance has changed. His movements are controlled and precise, and they carry an undeniable sense of danger. Pram is although less experienced in fighting barbarians, but he has grown much stronger. But regardless, our boy stays alert, ready to step in if necessary. But as the fight goes on, Pram's skill and aura grow sharper, and it reminds the MC of the powerful warrior Pram has been in his past life. Meanwhile, the barbarian guard enjoys the challenge, and he is not scared in the slightest. Our hero keeps his eyes on the fight and adjusts to the barbarian's unpredictable style, but he has confidence that Pram is more than capable of handling this battle on his own. Pram stands face to face with the massive barbarian guard, who comes charging at him like an angry bull. But Pram is not about to let himself get trampled. He moves as quick as a flash and slashes the guard from every direction. The guard notices Pram's small size and speedy moves, but instead of getting angry, the guy seems to be having fun. Pram, on the other hand, is not having such a great time. His rapier, which he has not used in ages, feels dull and awkward. He cannot land a deep hit, and it's starting to get to him. But then, he reminds himself that failure is not an option. If he does not win, he is not getting out of this mess. When the barbarian rushes again, Pram jumps back, just in time. But now, the guard is starting to match his speed. In that moment, Pram realizes he will have to finish this in one big move, so he aims for a weak spot. But as soon as he makes his move, the barbarian, as if reading his mind, sends him flying with a hard kick. Pram hits the ground so hard he can barely breathe. Our boy, who has been watching all this from the side, is now regretting his decision that led to this point. He has underestimated the barbarian, and Pram is now paying the price for it. He thinks about stepping in, but Pram stops him. This is not just about Pram being stubborn. Okay, maybe a little, but it's also about gratitude. The MC has told him everything he now knows about the sword, and Pram feels he owes him for that. He wants to finish this fight himself, no matter what. He gathers what little strength he has left and rushes in again while trying to predict the barbarian's moves. For a moment, it looks like he has outsmarted him, but of course, the barbarian is not done yet. Pram's quick reflexes save the day once more. The barbarian swings his huge sword wildly, like a blindfolded bear, but misses completely. Instead of hitting his target, the sword is broken in half in one clean strike by none other than our little cutie. But Pram does not stop there and lands a solid punch right on the barbarian's face. The giant stumbles back. He looks dazed and confused and then finally drops to his knees. The MC rushes over to check on Pram, but Pram reassures him that he is fine. He mentions something about how the sword probably saved his life, though he does not seem too thrilled about the close call. With Pram thankfully mostly intact, they get ready to move on, but Wujukun is not done yet. He warns them that they will never get through the iron door ahead. It's made of Kila iron, and it's practically unbreakable unless they are the barbarian, who is currently on the floor. He makes it clear he is not about to let them leave with the sword either. Our boy does not bother responding to the man's nonsense while Pram takes the practical route and slashes through the so-called unbreakable door with ease. Without even glancing back, they get going, and Wujukun just helplessly stands there. After a good run, the two of them finally manage to lose the guards chasing them. Pram looks completely fine and walks with ease, while our hero breathes heavily and regrets that he should have spent a bit more time in the gym. Still, the sight of the sword in Pram's hand gives him some comfort, which makes the whole situation feel worth it. As they continue to walk, the MC notices Pram seems hesitant, like there is something on his mind, but he cannot quite bring himself to say it. So our boy assures him that there is no need to thank him. After all, he is the one who provoked Wujukun in the first place and dragged them into the mess. Our hero's words seem to hit Pram harder than expected. After losing sight of his purpose, he used to spend so long drifting aimlessly because he was convinced that nothing mattered anymore. But then our boy showed up and offered a sense of direction and reminded him what it feels like to have hope again. In that moment, Pram decides, all while getting emotional, that he will stick to the path his master has shown him. He also promises to honor his father's words about finding his way, no matter how lost he felt before. Meanwhile, in the Alpha Class dining hall, Romantica is right where she always is as a beta, and that is on the radar of a group of alphas who are enjoying making her the target of their attention, or more accurately, their bullying. Romantica, however, acts like she does not notice and treats them as though they are not even there. Just then, Donata makes an entrance. Romantica sits across from Donata in the Alpha cafeteria and enjoys her food, while he goes on and on about how superior Alpha Class meals are, as if this big talker invented the menu himself. Romantica, however, is not paying much attention to his boasting and focuses on her own plate. Donata notices her indifference and brings up the reason she asked to meet him, all while probably expecting her to accept his confession and declare undying admiration for him. Instead, Romantica calmly returns the gift he gave her earlier. He has not expected her to refuse him, so he tries to reassure her that she might not want to date him. But Romantica explains that she has already joined a new beta class party, the one he has not even heard of. Upon hearing that, Donata gets worried that if they somehow pressured her into joining, but Romantica clarifies that it was entirely her choice. At first she was not too thrilled, but now she actually enjoys it. The leader of the club is a skilled trainer, and thanks to his guidance, she has improved her abilities quite a lot. Then comes a twist so wild it would not even make it into Donata's worst nightmare. Romantica reveals that she is a commoner. For a moment, his face shows disgust, but then, as if to delude himself, he calls it a joke and insists that if she were truly a commoner, she would have jumped at his offer to join the Alpha Class, which is the only real path for someone like her to rise. He is not wrong, but Romantica just cannot bring herself to take that route. Her teammates, for all their flaws, don't look at her the way he does. This explanation irritates him further, and soon, his frustration turns into anger, and he starts insulting Romantica and her teammates. In that moment, Romantica begins piecing together the reasons behind his arrogance. It is not just about personal hatred, but the academy system itself is broken, which gives importance to birth right instead of talent. The nobles are desperate to hold on to their power, and are afraid that commoners might rise up and challenge them. The emergence of the Shadow Worlds has made things worse because now anyone strong enough can get soul stones and upset the balance the nobles have worked so hard to protect. When she points this out, Donata gets even more furious. Her words bring up memories he is not ready to confront. The trauma of the populist uprising that led to the execution of nobles, including his own family. He was just a child back then who was forced to witness the brutal deaths of his loved ones, and the bitterness of those memories boils inside him. Romantica, on the other hand, makes it clear to Donata that their paths are destined to clash. Her club is going to rise to the Alpha Class, and if that makes them enemies, so be it. She leaves him there, burning in his anger and unresolved trauma. By the time she is gone, Donata's fury has grown so intense that he injures his own arm in his rage. One thing is certain, this is not going to end with polite handshakes and mutual respect. The newspaper office is in utter chaos as everyone runs around like headless chickens to secure an exclusive interview with Herbian Academy and get the latest scoop before anyone else can. Meanwhile, at the academy, students crowd around the notice board, and their faces are filled with shock. In her office, Brigitte looks on with satisfaction at something our boy has accomplished. Not everyone, however, is in such a good mood. At the same time, Fergman is furious at a few beta students who dare to intrude into their class. He is also angry toward Brigitte because in his world, she is somehow involved in whatever is disturbing him. As for what has everyone so riled up this morning? Just our hero's party making it into the top 30, and Fergman is not thrilled about it, to say the least. After a few deep breaths, Fergman calms down. Well, sort of. He apologizes to the Alpha students, though it sounds more like a whine than a sincere apology. He then orders the Blue Moon Party to do whatever it takes to eliminate the MC's group and secure the top spot. But there is one tiny problem before that because the freshman leader still has to be decided. Fergman has heard about Azest's previous encounter with our boy, and figures that she is just the person to handle it. Azest has been nursing her grudge ever since their entrance exam, where our hero handed her first ever defeat. But this time she promises herself that she won't mess up. After her meeting with Fergman ends, Azest leaves his office, and on her way, she bumps into Donata and Percival Asagunitz. Just a quick side note to mention. Percival is the same guy who had that practice duel with Pram earlier, the one where he bullied and beat poor Pram so badly that our hero had to step in and save him. Now back to the present. Donata and Percival have something on their minds, and it is not about Azest's leadership. But Donata wants Azest to let him face Romantica from the MC's party, while Percival is eager to take on Pram. He also assures her, with all the sincerity, that it is not a question of her abilities, but he just has a personal grudge with Romantica. Percival, on the other hand, agrees with everything Donata says, as if he is a robot who is programmed to do so. Azest, however, is not concerned about them. She makes it clear that as their leader, they have one rule: not to lay a finger on our boy, as he is hers to defeat. In the quiet library, the MC arrives with a pile of books about history, a clock tower, and some dusty records from a year, and sets them down on the table. He then informs Romantica and Pram that training is off the table for now, and they will dive into history instead. The advancement exam, being set in a 5th-level shadow world, and instead of just fighting, the students need to focus on studying. If they pass, it will grant them a soul stone, a key to navigating the shadow world, which is artificially built on historical events. The way these worlds work is fascinatingly organized, where pain suppression, controlled objectives, and even their chaos are managed. But in order to succeed, they have to know their history. Romantica is not thrilled about all the studying and questions if these random books are even useful. Our hero admits he is guessing, though he still insists they read and memorize them. It is not like he enjoys bossing them around, but he could not exactly spill the beans about his time travel secret. The trio then starts their study session. Well, at least the MC did. Pram, on the other hand, seems more interested in staring at our boy than his book. Romantica notices his wandering attention and teases him for being far too attached to our hero. Her sharp eyes don't miss something on Pram's shirt either, and she accuses him of going on a date with our boy without her. Our cutie Pram buries himself in his book and hopes that she will drop it, but Romantica is not letting it go. She kicks him under the table with her foot and wants him to spill the details. The MC, who is already running out of patience, shuts his book with a forced smile and suggests they actually focus on their reading. For a moment, calm returns. Then, of course, Romantica's book decides to fall to the floor and shatters the temporary peace. As she bends to pick it up, Azest appears and grabs the book. Romantica snatches it back from her and returns to her seat to read. Azest also sits down with them and greets our boy. Our hero compliments how well the Blue Moon Party suits her, as both she and the group are strong, a fitting match. However, Azest is not in a mood for compliments, but rather she declares war on the MC. Our boy is not surprised, though. Azest has a habit of treating strong opponents with respect, and she always makes her intentions clear before a fight. Azest admits to underestimating him during the entrance exam, but she is determined not to repeat that mistake again. Our hero is internally amused, as he knows this is exactly what he hoped for. He has pushed her limits on purpose, as he knows her competitive fire is essential for their success in clearing the shadow world. He accepts the challenge and prepares himself for what is sure to be an intense battle. The big day of the Herbian Academy's most awaited advancement exam has finally arrived, and the arena is buzzing with excitement. The stands are packed with teachers, students, and spectators, all anxiously waiting for things to kick off. Among them, our boy Romantica and Pram are also all set. Romantica notices that our hero has actually bothered to tie his tie properly for once. Pram notices it too, but while Romantica suspects he does it to show off, Pram thinks the MC always looks cool. For our boy, however, dressing up is just a way to stay focused, not an audition for a fashion show. Their conversation reassures our hero that at least they are relaxed enough to joke around instead of freaking out. The trio then walks into the arena and is met with a mix of cheers and insults. Unsurprisingly, most of the trash talk comes from none other than the Blue Moon Party, who are so full of themselves that they are convinced the MC's team is no match for their overwhelming power. Our boy, however, does not waste energy on their nonsense. He has more important things to focus on, like surviving, and for that, he needs to assign roles to his teammates. Romantica is the sniper, and she is tasked with spotting enemies using detection spells and taking them out from a distance. Naturally, Romantica panics a little and doubts whether her magic is strong enough to deal with the so-called mighty alphas. Our hero reassures her and reminds her that their training has prepared her for exactly this kind of scenario. It takes Romantica a moment to realize that he has planned their practice with this specific exam in mind. How thoughtful, or maybe something is suspicious about him. Pram's role, on the other hand, is straightforward, and it's to protect the team and attack when he can. As for the MC, he will guide them like the master planner he always acts like. With their plans set, the trio is ready to face whatever comes next. The exam begins and the Shadow World gate opens. Our boy finds himself in a dense forest, with the time being around noon. His mission is to locate the enemy headquarters. But Romantica and Pram are nowhere to be seen. Then out of nowhere, an ice bolt comes flying toward him. Our hero dodges it effortlessly and then turns to face his attacker, a girl who looks far too confident for someone who has just missed her target. They exchange a few words, and then she attacks again, this time with more power. She is using ice bolts for offense and aqua wave for defense while trying to show off her multitasking skills. But our boy quickly spots the problem. Her spells are overlapping, and the cracks in her defense are as obvious as her overconfidence. Before she realizes her mistake, the worst happens. Her spell shatters, and an explosion rocks the surroundings. The MC braces himself as the ice bolts come towards him flying, but for a moment, he notices they have stopped mid-air, as if they are just taking a break. Feeling a bit too relieved, he lowers his guard, but of course the fragments are just setting up for a grand finale. They turn into a violent windstorm that moves faster than the blink of an eye and then scatter everywhere and hit anything in their path. Some of them even manage to harm our boy. Meanwhile, the girl is glowing with pride over her magic. The magic that she is convinced no commoner like our hero could even begin to grasp. The MC, on the other hand, admits she has surprised him, but, well, it is a shame she has to face him. He then activates his famous inverse operation spell and reverses her magic back on herself. He also offers her some pieces of advice about never underestimating her opponent, and always planning ahead. They are, after all, the basics of combat, which she clearly has not bothered to learn. The girl, however, is still convinced that no mere commoner can best her and tries to defend herself. But she fails as our boy's magic hits her from all directions. And just like that, she is eliminated, and 29 participants remain. Our hero continues to move on, as if it is just another ordinary day. Somewhere else in the forest, a man is complaining about the heat, the forest, and life in general. Then, as if by magic, a breeze passes by, and he starts to think maybe things are getting better. But he is wrong, as Romantica takes care of him quickly, and the number of remaining participants drops to 27. Romantica, along with Prom, is looking for the MC. At least they have each other for moral support in this brutal competition. Romantica then casts her detection spell to find our boy, and when she does, she senses 4 people nearby. She eliminates one with ease, but then something strange happens. Her spell is cancelled out. She alerts Pram to get ready, as they probably have found their leader. But when they get closer, they realize it is not him. Instead, they see a boy with a girl, who lectures Romantica for using her spell too much, and foolishly giving away her location. He looks down on her as a commoner. Romantica, however, challenges him that they will see who the real fool is. Romantica is not impressed by the confidence of the alpha students. They think they have this fight in the bag, but she is not about to let them win so easily. As the boy charges toward them with his sword, Pram blocks the strike with his rapier and sends the boy stumbling back. The girl is busy getting worried over the boy. He, however, tells her to calm down and focus. Romantica and Pram, on the other hand, are already prepared for action. When the boy and Pram face off, Pram moves so fast that it feels almost unfair. The alphas just stand there, unable to believe a beta student could actually have talent. The boy, however, is not impressed, probably because Pram's skills make him look like a clumsy beginner. In a fit of frustration, he slams his sword into the ground and orders the girl to cast a spell. The girl tries, but Romantica decides it is time to remind them that she is there as well. Before the spell can land, the girl finds herself on the receiving end of a well-placed attack and falls to the ground. Meanwhile, the boy turns his focus back to Pram, who is effortlessly outclassing him. Pram, however, does not even bother attacking, but he simply points out that the boy is focused on the wrong person. Right on cue, Romantica attacks and finishes the boy off in her usual dramatic style. With the boy down, Pram takes care of the girl. As they get done, Romantica cannot help but notice how far Pram has come. His skill level has skyrocketed, and he knows exactly who to thank for that. His master, that is our boy. Speaking of the MC, Romantica's eyes catch him hiding in the grass like some spectator. Turns out he has been there the whole time, just watching them. When he finally shows himself, he admits he has thought about stepping in, but decides against it, apparently because they were doing just fine without his help. Our boy then praises them both and pats Pram like a proud parent. Romantica, however, cannot let go of one little detail from her mind about how she launched a powerful shot in the MC's direction earlier, only for him to cancel it off like it was nothing. Our hero notices her lost in thought and pats her on the head too. She pushes him away, but deep down, maybe she does not mind the acknowledgement. As nightfall approaches, they know it is time to move on. An alpha boy moves ruthlessly through the forest while eliminating the participants with a cold efficiency. It is not personal, but just those unfortunate enough to cross his path are simply unlucky. Meanwhile, the MC, Romantica, and Pram realize only 24 people remain in the competition. This makes Romantica bring up our boy's earlier plan. Our hero outlines 2 possible paths to advance to the alpha class. The first option is to complete the Shadow World's mission and secure first place, which appears to be an impossible feat for their small team, given the strength of their competitors. The second, more realistic option is to survive until they are among the last 9 participants. To achieve this, they need to outlast and eliminate 15 more contestants while letting others exhaust themselves in battle. It is a challenging but achievable goal, and the trio agrees on this approach. As they discuss their strategy, rain begins to pour and forces them to take shelter under a tree. Romantica, however, seems distracted. She reflects on how improbable this journey seems for someone like her. If she had accepted Donetta's offer and hidden her identity as a commoner, she might have avoided all this. But that deception would have surely been exposed by now. Lost in her thoughts, she is startled back to reality when the MC reassures her with a warm compliment on her efforts so far and encourages her to rely on him if things go south. His words lighten the mood, and the trio shares a moment of laughter before the previous clock tower rings and signals a new development in the exam. An announcement declares a new mission for the remaining contestants. They are tasked with using their knowledge of past events to survive the present challenge. In this test, the previous tower, a highly advanced magical artifact, will release one demon every hour, and the only way to complete the mission is to defeat the demon. As lightning flashes, Romantica flinches in fear. Our boy immediately tells her and Pram to stay behind as he scans the surroundings. A foul stench fills the air, and moments later, the ground begins to rumble. Our hero shouts for them to prepare for battle as a monstrous rat emerges from beneath the ground. Its size and appearance are enough to send Romantica and Pram clinging to their leader in terror. Their horror only deepens as more rats surface and then reveals an entire army of the nightmarish creatures. The monstrous rodents growl, and without a second thought, the trio turns and runs in the opposite direction. The trio is running as fast as they can, trying to escape the terrifying swarm of rats chasing them. Our hero knows this is not an ordinary rat, but it is Kildra Mice, who is a dangerous 2-star demon that can control entire armies of rodents. These creatures hunt humans, feed on their blood, and never give up once they find their prey. Romantica is frustrated by the situation, so she uses her Windblow spell to slow the rats down. But it does not work. Our boy tells her to save her mana as it is not the right time to use it. But Romantica is worried and wants him to think of a solution quickly, because obviously they cannot just keep running until the rats catch up with them. Suddenly they reach a dead end, and the path ahead is blocked by a fallen tree. The MC tells them to jump across. Pram goes first and makes it without any problems. Romantica tries next but slips halfway through. Our hero manages to grab her and pull her to safety, and they keep running. However, the swarm of rats also continues to chase them. Our boy knows that their only chance is to kill the leader of the rats, the Kildra Mice, but finding it in the middle of the swarm seems impossible. In order to do that, he has to think outside of the box. So he stops and bites his hand and allows his blood to drip to the ground. The smell catches the attention of one rat, which steps forward. Our hero signals Romantica, and she uses her Wind Bullet spell on it. The spell hits, but the rat survives as it is a 2-star demon after all. And to make matters worse, the injured rat retreats back into the swarm. Our boy tells them to keep running, but Pram does the opposite. He runs straight into the swarm of rats while ignoring their shouts to stop. He stays calm and focused while being surrounded by rats. He knows the Kildra Mice was injured from Romantica's spell and looks for any sign of it. The MC, on the other hand, wants to help, but decides against using Romantica's magic to scatter the rats as it is too risky and might hurt Pram. Just when our hero's patience is running out, Pram appears from the middle of the swarm with the dead body of the Kildra Mouse. With its leader gone, the rats scatter and disappear. The trio is finally safe, but their relief does not last long. Pram, who is exhausted from the fight, gets dizzy. The MC and Romantica rush to his side. But thankfully, their mission is completed. The MC cannot help but feel proud of Pram for completing the task, but he notices how exhausted the young boy is. Pram has pushed himself too hard, and our hero wants him to take some rest. Pram then drifts off to sleep, and our boy passes the responsibility of watching over him to Romantica, while he steps away for a moment to gather his thoughts. Now alone, the MC stands a little distance away and lost deep in thought. He realizes it was his own arrogance that has put Pram in danger. The mission could be easily completed, but his pride has made things more difficult. He punches himself in frustration and calls himself a fool, but he knows he has to pull himself together. After a few moments, he returns to Romantica and Pram. Romantica notices his swollen face, but he just claims that he was scouting the area. Just as they are about to move on, Pram wakes up as well. But the rain is pouring down heavily, and Romantica is not eager to move until it stops. Our hero, however, tells her they cannot wait. Their final objective is to deactivate the clock tower, and for that, they need to destroy the power source on the top floor. He is not about to let anything stop them now, and he steels himself for what is ahead, determined to see the mission through with precision. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, the Blue Moon Party has just completed their mission, though at a cost. 2 members are lost in the battle with the Kildra Mice, leaving just 7 survivors in their party. Despite this, they are in the lead, with only 18 survivors left in total, and are almost guaranteed to make it to the top 9. As Azest orders her team into formation, a sudden breeze catches her attention. Sensing danger, she immediately shields one of her teammates with ice magic and commands the group to prepare for an attack. They are under assault, and Azest can tell things are not going well. The weather is harsh, morale is low, and an attack has just taken place, which is a spell detection followed by a sniper's strike. Azest knows this is not any normal magic. No magician they know on their grade can wield such power. As her party makes their way to the tower, Azest prepares herself for what lies ahead. Romantica stands at the top floor of the magic tower, and she is casting her sniping magic. The spell, however, completely misses because Azest is close to the target. Our boy, of course, saw this coming. He knew all along that Azest's presence would cancel the spell, but decided to go ahead anyway. This makes Romantica confused. She has a valid point about why they would reveal their position with a move that was bound to fail. But our hero has his own reasons. He wants her to start sniping at other parties, just like before, and does not care if it makes things messier. Romantica, however, struggles to understand his reasoning. The MC explains they cannot face their opponents head-on, so their best chance lies in stirring chaos. Despite her doubts and the obvious risks, he urges her to trust him. After a moment's hesitation, she agrees, though she cannot help but wonder if sniping alone will lure their enemies. Our boy, however, is confident. The final mission is in the tower, and he is certain their enemies will come to them. Before Romantica can question further, Prom interrupts with urgent news that the other parties have arrived. And now it's time to prepare for the ultimate battle. At the tower entrance, the Blue Moon party gets in and finds themselves face to face with other groups. Gabriel, another party leader, sees Azest and accuses her of behind the sniping. Azest gives Gabriel a look and recognizes him as the second-best first-year student. Donetta, on the other hand, asks Gabriel if they have been sniped too, but Gabriel has made up his mind that they are behind it because no first-year can pull off such precise sniping unless they are part of the Blue Moon party. It's as if it was all Azest needed to hear. She now realizes that our hero is behind this, and clearing the mission was never his real goal. She is determined to stop him, and for that, she orders her team to find and deal with the sniper while she handles the rest of the clubs. Gabriel, however, has had enough of her attitude. She has been a thorn in his side since the entrance exams, and now it's personal. He casts his fire-burning spell right at her, but Azest dodges it effortlessly and replies with an ice wall that knocks two of his teammates out of the fight. Left all alone, Gabriel calls out for help from another party, Pine Tree. Azest, however, charges forward at them like a storm as if no one is getting in her way. Meanwhile, inside the tower, our boys' group waits and wonders if the fight outside has ended. They don't have to wait for long as Azest appears before them after taking care of others. Now it's their turn as she is done with their tricks. The MC's plan against Azest comes close to working but ultimately falls short. Azest has caught on to his scheme when she noticed that his team was not among the remaining groups. It did not take long for a genius like Azest to figure out his goal, to make the other groups fight like fools while his team quietly secures a spot in the top 9. He is clever, but not clever enough. That is why she has only restrained the survivors instead of eliminating them. Now, certain his team has no way around her, she confidently challenges him to face her directly and dares him to prove he is worthy of the top rank. Azest then traps our boy with her ice magic, leaving him stuck. Romantica and Pram start to worry but don't have the luxury of time to dwell on it, as Percival is already on Pram's chase. Pram blocks his attack, and Romantica is now facing Donata, who is ready for her. Pram and Percival's fight turns into a sword-fighting show. Percival cannot stop running his mouth and tries his best to insult and degrade our little cutie, but Pram is not having it. He knows Percival's taunts are just empty words. This makes Percival annoyed, so he decides to swing his sword like a madman. But Pram blocks each of his attacks with ease. It's hard to believe this is the same Pram who, only weeks ago, could not even hold a sword properly. Percival takes a step back, as he is unable to wrap his head around Pram's sudden improvement. But Pram has no intention to explain it to him. Percival, who is still confused, then turns his attention to Donata to see what he is up to. Over with Donetta, he is facing Romantica, who is throwing wind spells at him. Donata blocks them effortlessly, then decides to mock her a bit for being just a second-circle magician. Romantica stands her ground, even as Donetta keeps calling her weak. She is not weak, but just tired from all the sniping. But she knows her mana is running low, and the idea of fighting Donata, a skilled swordsman, up close makes her nervous. Unfortunately, Donetta is not planning to go easy on her just because she is exhausted. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, a loud explosion occurs, and thick fog covers the surroundings. Romantica realizes that it is an inverse operation spell, probably cast by our hero. The smoke makes it hard for Donetta to see, but it also blocks Romantica's vision and leaves her unsure of his movements. Donata is unable to spot her, so he stays on guard and waits for her to act. Suddenly, an attack hits his right hand and surprises him, and he realizes that Romantica has figured out where he is. More attacks follow, this time from behind. He barely manages to block them, and then notices her clever trick that she has used the wind to fake her location, which is a classic magician's move. He gets frustrated as he realizes that she is hiding in the fog to avoid fighting him directly. Meanwhile, Romantica stays hidden while thinking of a way to defeat Donata without revealing where she is. Just as she is about to use a detection spell to locate him, the fog starts to clear because of some magical reaction. She then sees Donata rushing towards her, but she rolls backward just in time to dodge his attack. That is when she notices something odd. The necklace Donata gave her earlier, which he is now wearing, is a magical device. Donata once again starts to boast about how much better he is in status, skill, and talent than her. But Romantica has had enough. To her, they are both students at the same academy, and that makes them equals. No matter how much he talks about class and divisions, they are both humans, and he cannot change that fact. But Donata sees it differently. To him, she has no right to judge, but only he does. As he keeps on bragging, Romantica notices something else. This is not just mere pride, but something deeper is driving him. It is the pain of losing his family, a memory that has haunted him since he was a child. Their deaths have left him obsessed with revenge and pushed him to show no mercy to commoners. This heavy burden has shaped his cruel beliefs, which he now wants to force onto Romantica. Determined to prove he is better, Donata uses the magic rings on his fingers to launch more attacks. Romantica runs, using her wind magic to block his fiery spells, but he casts a powerful fire spell, which causes a massive explosion. The blast catches the attention of Percival and Pram rush over to check on Romantica. Donata, however, is still trapped in his dark thoughts that commoners like Romantica don't belong in this world. Romantica is knocked down after the explosion, but Pram is quick to help her back up. Lucky for her, she managed to pull off some last-second magic to cancel out the blast's impact. As without it, she would be out of the exam and probably in worse shape. On the other side, Donata decides he does not need backup and orders Percival to sit this one out. Apparently, he is convinced that he can handle both Pram and Romantica solely by himself. Percival tries to argue, but Donata, too full of himself to listen, charges ahead. Seeing Donata rushing toward them, Romantica, who is still trying to catch her breath and mana, asks Pram to buy her some time. Donata, however, summons a massive boulder using his magic and throws it at Pram and then rushes to finish him off. But Pram, who is as quick as ever, dodges at the last second and reappears behind Donata to land a hit that leaves a scar on his face. Both of them then stumble back, and Percival confronts Donata that Pram is his opponent to deal with. He even offers to team up, but Donata is being too proud for his own good and coldly refuses. Meanwhile, Romantica joins Pram to check on him, and Pram shares something that does not sit right with Donata. He is not paying attention to anything around him, but he is only focused on Romantica. Romantica now feels useless without her mana, and tries to convince Pram to take Percival and leave her to handle Donata alone, but Pram has no intention of leaving her behind. He reminds her they have got the MC on their side and assures her they will handle this together. That little talk is all Romantica needed to get her confidence back, and the two prepare to take on Donata as a team. Elsewhere in the tower, our boy and Azest are locked in their own showdown. Azest seems to have injured him, but of course he is just faking it. He retaliates with a spell and shatters her ice magic into fragments that strike her, and even summons magical snakes to coil around her arm. Azest freezes them off in no time, but our hero is not done yet. With his signature spell, Inverse Operation, he signals that the real battle is only getting started. The fight between our hero and Azest is nothing short of incredible. Our boy counters Azest's powerful ice magic with his Inverse Operation spell. But Azest is not an easy opponent. She jumps into the air and casts multiple magic circles at once. The MC keeps up with her and cancels her spells. Azest sees it and knows that the Inverse Operation spell cannot last forever. In response to her spell, our hero attacks with fire magic, but her ice shield blocks it completely, which leaves him amazed. She does not have a single scratch, and her strength is truly impressive. Azest, however, cannot understand how she has not defeated him yet. She has more mana, faster spells, and better combat skills, but he remains standing. It then dawns on her that what she lacks is not power, but experience. She realizes that her spells are not working, so she decides to fight him in close combat. Our boy tries using a grease spell to trip her, but it does not work this time. He then steadies himself and boosts his physical strength and meets her sword with his own. Azest is stunned because obviously she has not expected a magician to hold his ground in close combat. She keeps attacking, but the MC skillfully dodges or blocks her strikes. Frustration starts to build in her. As a magic knight, she is stronger and more skilled than most, but she cannot overpower this one boy. Her anger blinds her to the fact that our hero's calm and careful moves are outsmarting her. Our boy notices her frustration and points out that she seems to be enjoying herself, even if she does not realize it. It has been years since she faced a worthy opponent. For so long, she has found life dull because no one could challenge her strength. He understands her determination to beat him and her desire to make him surrender. She admits she does not know if she is enjoying the fight, but she still wants to win and cannot figure out why he is so calm about it. The MC stays composed and is ready to give her the tough battle she has always wanted. Fired up by his words, Azest prepares to use her magic again and is determined to push herself to the limit. Back in the packed arena, a reporter asks a question that makes everyone go quiet. He asks what makes Magic Knight so special. But the way people stare at him, it's like he just asked why the sky is blue. He obviously knows what a Magic Knight is, but what he struggles to grasp is the hype around someone who can wield both magic and a sword. Fergman steps in to explain that being a Magic Knight is not just about using both a sword and magic. To make it simple, he compares it to two kinds of people: runners and walkers. The runner represents the swordsman, while the walker represents the magician. The walker might try to keep up with the runner, but no matter how much magic they use, they can never match the runner's speed. But when a swordsman learns to use magic, they become something completely different. They can not only keep up with the magician but also surpass them, making it impossible for the magician to catch up. This is what makes Magic Knights so powerful. They combine the best of both worlds, magic and swordsmanship. While this explanation is being digested, the MC is occupied in a completely different situation. Around him, everything is freezing over. He stands in the middle of Azest's frozen palace and is amazed by how she has created a space where she can use endless magic without limits. He understands what this means. Such a zone allows the caster to launch hundreds of spells at once. To fight back, he uses fire magic and counters her icy attacks. But at the same time, he cannot help but admire her power. But in his mind, she still needs to do better. Suddenly, the ground beneath him rises, and a barrage of spells comes his way. Our boy responds by casting a large fire barrier by using his famous inverse operation spell, which blocks everything. Azest is stunned. She cannot believe how easily he cancels her attacks. She tries harder. She fires spells rapidly from every angle and hopes to overwhelm him. But no matter how quickly she attacks, our hero cancels her spells just as fast. She gets frustrated and starts searching for a way to defeat him, for any weakness. That is when she realizes the problem is not the number of her attacks or their speed. It is the way she is using her magic. The MC notices her pause and can tell she is thinking hard. He smiles because this is what he wants, for her to grow stronger. And then, he sees something different. This time, her movements change. Instead of focusing on pure magic, she infuses it into her sword and combines both powers into a single strike. Our boy cannot help but feel proud. Azest is not just fighting anymore. She is evolving, and that is exactly what he hopes to see. Pram and Romantica are still caught up in a tough fight with Donata, and Pram is starting to see he misjudged him. He never thought a swordsman using magical gadgets could be so powerful and capable of taking on both of them at once, without even looking tired. At the same time, Romantica is more worried about Percival, who is just standing there. She knows if he joins the fight, things will get messy fast, so she decides to take him out first. But Donata has other plans. He calls out to Percival and asks for backup. Percival, who was tired of sitting on the sidelines, immediately grabs the chance. Donata, on the other hand, just wants to wrap this whole thing up already. Percival charges at Pram and Romantica, and then he throws his sword at them. They barely dodge it, but Donata and Percival don't even let them catch their breath. As this happens, Romantica yells at Pram to hit the ground. As he does, she uses her magic. Both Donata and Percival, who were probably feeling pretty confident about their so-called advantage, are caught completely off guard by her sudden attack. While this is happening, our hero is facing Azest, and he is seriously impressed. He has pushed her to develop her magic faster, but this is way beyond what he expected. She has somehow managed to combine magic with swordsmanship, and now she is wielding something called the Magiblade, basically the ultimate move a Magic Knight can pull off. Our boy cannot help but think back to his past life and remembers how it took Azest an extra 10 years to master this. And yet here she is, nailing it in record time, all on her own. The problem is, the power she is using is so intense that the frozen palace they are fighting in is starting to collapse. Apparently, the Magiblade requires a ridiculous amount of mana, and Azest is struggling to keep it all together. As she casts an Ice Wave spell, the MC realizes he has no chance. He is about to get sliced in half, so he just drops his sword and gives up. Azest rushes at him, ready to end it. But just as she strikes, she notices a smile on his face that screams he has something up his sleeve. But before anything else can happen, an announcement rings out that the Shadow World is cleared. The results of the Shadow World event are finally out. Our boy takes the top spot, with Azest in second and Pram in third. But of course, not everyone is happy about it. Fergman, for example, is absolutely furious. He refuses to accept the rankings and demands to storm off to the control center. Dean Justin, however, decides to let him throw his tantrum, as it's understandable given his fragile ego. Meanwhile, Brigitte is glowing with happiness, quite the opposite of Fergman, and her joy makes Dean Justin curious about what future challenges might bring. Later that night, the professors gather for a meeting, and Fergman is still burning with anger. He is determined to prove that Brigitte has cheated, as in his eyes there is no way a commoner can outperform a magic knight. He seems to forget that our boy has already beaten her fair and square during the entrance exam, though those results were conveniently adjusted. Another professor agrees with Fergman, but a third one is not having it. He demands proof of their claims and points out that anyone who has actually watched the battle can see there was no cheating. But Fergman is being persistent that they must have used some trick. When pressed for specifics, he has nothing but vague accusations. Dean Justin's guards remind Fergman to tone it down and show some respect, and then place a tablet on the table displaying the dean's chosen rankings. Upon hearing that, Fergman and his cheerleaders start panicking. One professor points out that there is no reason for this meeting if the dean has already made his decision. Dean Justin explains his reason that he wanted to hear their opinions, even the ridiculous ones. With that, the official list is announced, and Fergman has no choice but to swallow his pride. Meanwhile, back in the dormitory's main lobby, our hero and Azest are chatting about the previous night. The MC explains that by the time the demon should have appeared, it was past 2 o'clock, which means the clock tower had stopped. Azest mentions noticing moments when the usual ticking sounds disappear. Our boy explains that he can only undo magic based on formulas, and the clock tower is a high-level magical device designed to summon demons. Azest admits she missed that detail and accepts her defeat, and just as he is about to reassure her, Prom pops in to finish his sentence, that if things had gone differently, they would have avenged him. Romantica also joins them and is unimpressed to see Azest there. She and Pram sit close to their leader and glare at Azest as if she has crashed a private party. Romantica is especially irritated, and though the MC tries to explain that Azest has just stopped by to discuss the exam, Romantica is not buying it. Azest points out that if Romantica had been eliminated, it just proves that she is not alpha material. This makes Romantica further furious, and our boy notices it. So in order to prevent the disaster to unfold, he jumps in to smooth things over by twisting Azest's words into a compliment. He also thanks Romantica for her sniping skills, which have secured their victory. As our hero and his team joke around, Azest watches their close bond. She then decides it is time to leave. But before she leaves, she has one last request for the MC. She wants to join him in his training sessions. Romantica can hardly believe her ears. Azest, of all people, wants to train with them. Naturally, she assumes the MC will shut her down instantly. But no, he just smiles and gives her the time and place for training, like it's no big deal. As Azest leaves, Romantica turns to our boy. She is fuming at him for agreeing to it without even consulting them. Pram, on the other hand, asks our boy what their next step is. Our hero wants to wait for the results first. That answer does not sit well with Romantica, who cannot stop stressing about the club falling apart once they move to the alpha class. To mess with her, the MC reminds her of their deal that she is supposed to leave the club after a month anyway. Even Pam joins in the fun and waves goodbye to her like she is already packing her bags. But of course our boy is not serious. He stops the teasing and brings up the real reason for their club, which is to support the talented beta class students who have been unfairly labeled because of their social standing. It's a painful subject for him, and Romantica cannot help but notice how serious he becomes. But this is just one part of our hero's grand plan. The real challenge is still ahead. The shadow world and its world-ending danger are not going to wait around. He knows they have to grow stronger, train harder, and prepare for the fight of their lives. This time, he is not going to lose. But then, a loud voice pulls him back to reality. Brigitte has arrived with all smiles and full of energy and wraps the MC in a bear hug. Once she settles down, our boy asks what brings her here. Brigitte uses magic and brings out a cake from a famous bakery. The trio thanks her for the treat. As they enjoy the cake, Brigitte gets all nostalgic, talking about the first time she met our hero. Apparently, he was a tiny kid who begged her to teach him magic. She finds it adorable, but the MC looks like he wants to disappear. Then comes the big announcement. Brigitte reveals the news they have been waiting for. They are officially assigned to the alpha class as single rankers. They all get emotional, and as for our boy, it is not just a promotion, it's one step closer to his ultimate goal. Meanwhile, somewhere in a ruined, grim-looking part of the continent, someone is giving warning to the Mage's tower. Whatever they are planning, it does not look like it's going to be good news for anyone. In a quiet classroom, Professor Prelude's voice fills the room as she gives a lecture about the shadow worlds. Most of the students look half asleep, and the rest are already sleeping. Prelude cannot blame them, as history is not the most exciting subject. Still, there are things they need to understand, so she has to push on. Less than 50 years ago, humanity finally gained control over the shadow worlds, thanks to soul crystals, which are rare minerals made from crystallized mana. These crystals were pretty useless at first since their tough outer layer trapped all the good stuff inside. But then the Mage's Tower worked its magic and figured out how to break through that layer and unleash the mana within. This discovery kicked off a golden age of magic and brought countless benefits to humanity. Of course, no good thing comes without trouble, and soon enough, criminals called Outers started targeting these crystals for their high value. Prelude stops her lecture and asks who came up with the enchanting process. A drowsy romantica catches her eye, and our hero quietly whispers the answer to her, Zod Exarian. With that, the class wraps up, and the students begin to leave. As the lecture hall empties, our boy and his team approach the professor. After introducing themselves, the MC presents a request form. Prelude assumes they want to apply for the Mage's Tower's support, but our hero clarifies that they are there for something different. They want her to assign them a mission. Prelude gets surprised and hesitates as she feels unsure of their motives. So our boy explains that clubs from the academy can earn payment for completing quests, but Prelude still finds their request unusual. Then the MC drops a bombshell. He reveals that in 10 hours, the Euralian branch of the Mage's Tower will come under attack, and the target will be a second-tier soul crystal known as Luganel's Tear. Prelude is stunned, both by the gravity of the information and by how our hero can possibly know such a classified detail. Despite her shock, he calmly urges her to request the Mage's Tower to hire them to prevent the attack. Hours later, in the city-state of Altea, chaos erupts at the Eurali branch of the Mage's Tower, just as our boy has predicted. Inside the Tower Master's room, a man bursts in with urgent news that the branch is under attack. A young boy runs through a dark alley. His face is covered by a scarf, and he is holding a bag of bread like it's the most valuable thing he owns. He is in a rush, but luck is not on his side. In his hurry, he bumps into a tall man whose face is hidden by the shadow of his hat. The boy falls to the ground, and his bag of bread slips out of his hands. But instead of letting gravity do its thing, the man catches the bag with a flick of magic. The boy scrambles to his feet and gives an apology while the man hands him the bag. Well, almost. Before the boy can grab it, the man asks why he was running around so late at night. The boy explains that his younger brother is sick and stuck at home, so he has to bring bread for him. The man's face softens for a second, almost as if he cares, but then comes the twist. The man drops the bread on the ground and stomps on it like it's personally offended him. He then walks away without a glance back and leaves the boy staring at the ruined bread. The man then arrives at the Eurali branch of the Mage's Tower, where he swaps his hat for a weird mask. He summons masked figures, and on his signal, they launch a fiery attack on the tower, with flames striking against the magical barrier. But of course, the tower's defenses hold firm, as expected. The masked man then decides to switch things up. He instructs his men to add physical attacks with maces into the mix, as no magical barrier can block two types of attacks at the same time. The plan works, and the gates give way. Inside the branch, chaos is in full swing. Guards are running into action far too quickly for a surprise attack. They are fully armed and ready, and they move like they have been expecting the intruders. The masked man notices this, but leaves it as he is too focused on his master plan to care. He uses an invisible spell to move easily and leads a smaller group deeper into the branch. While on the way, his thoughts wander for a moment to a strange conversation where a few guards hinted they knew about the attack. Finally, they reach the room housing the Soul Stone. The masked man uses earth magic to break through its protective casing, which then reveals the glowing artifact within. Just as he reaches for it, a voice commands him to stop and surrender. He turns and finds Pram standing there, who is looking far too cute and confident for someone interrupting a dangerous heist. Pram is facing the Outers, and it hits him that these guys are out to kill. The masked man tells the others to attack Pram, while he himself uses fire magic. Pram, with quick reflexes, steps back without breaking a sweat. He sizes up the situation really well that there are 4 magicians and 3 swordsmen. The magicians look tough, probably as strong as Romantica, but the swordsmen are barely a threat. The magicians send a mix of fire and ice magic toward Pram, but he just slices through them with his sword like it's nothing. The Outers then realize that Pram's sword is not normal, and it can block magic. They try to pull back, but Pram is not letting them off easily. He charges forward, knocks out one of the magicians, and keeps going to take out the rest. But the masked man uses magic to trap Pram's feet and summons a big fist from the ground that hits him hard. Pram falls back and just stands there like it's no big deal. The masked man gets a little surprised while witnessing Pram's physical strength, but to him, Pram still lacks experience. He then casts another spell, but it's way too slow, and Pram dodges it without trouble. Then out of nowhere, walls appear around Pram and traps him. He sees the fire and ice attacks coming at him, but before they can hit, a bunch of sniping shots block them. The Outers freeze as they realize that there is someone else around. Before they can react, several of them are knocked out by another magic attack. The masked man starts to panic as things are going out of control. He figures out that the sniping spells cannot get through armor, which means they are second circle magic, and there has to be more than one person casting them. He then orders his remaining men to cover him while he starts casting something big. On the other side, Pram is still stuck, but the walls are now crumbling. He knows he cannot wait around. When the walls finally fall, he rushes out and slashes through the outers like they are nothing. When he gets to the last one, their swords clash, but just then, the ground starts falling apart. The masked man, who is desperate to survive, uses stones to shield himself while leaving his own last man to get killed by being trapped in them. Then the floor cracks, and Pram barely dodges falling into the mess. But still he is relieved as he has done his part. Meanwhile, the giant stone carrying the masked man falls into an underground water tunnel, and then he comes out, while still trying to figure out how they knew about his plan. Even the tower's intelligence could not have predicted this. But whatever, the soul stone is his, and he is ready to leave. That is when our hero shows up behind him in the disguise of the boy from earlier, who is now here to collect his payment for the bread. The MC kept an eye on the masked man, Kraken, when they crossed paths in the alley a few hours earlier. And it was when our hero secretly marked him with his mana, which made it easy for him to track Kraken's every move. When Kraken finally figures out what has been happening, how the Mage's Tower responded so quickly to their surprise attack, how Pram attacked them, and how the sniper has been involved, he realizes our boy has been pulling the strings all along. Kraken gets frustrated and tries to cast a spell, but it disappears faster than his hope. And the MC cannot help himself to comment on how elementary the spell was. No wonder it did not work. Kraken, who is barely holding it together, still cannot believe a first circle magician can outclass him. Our hero, meanwhile, has a more important concern, which is getting compensation for the bread Kraken crushed. Kraken has now run out of options, so he takes out the soul stone and threatens to destroy it if our boy moves even an inch closer. But the MC is not worried even in the slightest. He knows Kraken won't destroy the stone, not after everything he had gone through to get it. And our hero keeps walking toward him. As our boy now stands in front of him, Kraken tries to throw a punch, but the MC is too quick. With a simple gravity spell, he sends Kraken crashing to his knees into the water. Kraken cannot believe it. Our hero, a first circle magician, has just used a fourth circle spell so quickly. While Kraken struggles in the water, our boy takes the soul stone, as if it's no big deal. But it seems that Kraken's daily dose of surprises is not quite done yet. The unprocessed stones start reacting to the MC, and Kraken just cannot wrap his head around it. He wants to know how our hero is doing it, but our boy is too busy getting back at him for the bread. Back at the academy, Prelude thanks our boy and his team for stopping the Mage's Tower from taking a huge hit. The MC, without wasting time on useless formalities, asks about their payment, and Prelude hands over the 120 gold pieces from the Mage's Tower. Romantica and Pram get excited about finally getting some money. Prelude even puts in an extra 20 coins as an apology for doubting them earlier and offers a personal reward. But to their surprise, our hero rejects the gold and reminds Prelude that he never needed the gold or the tower's help in the first place. Romantica and Pram are left stunned. Our boy, though, is not interested in money, but what he really wants is a chance to play chess with Zod Xarian, the master of the Mage's Tower. In the city-state of Altea, known as the Heart of Magatech, the MC follows close behind Prelude as she leads him through the grand halls of the Mage's Tower. They are heading to Zod's office, the workspace of the most powerful magician the world has ever seen. On the way, Prelude cannot help but question our boy's decision, because obviously it seems ridiculous, like trading gold for a handful of pebbles. But our boy, as always, has his reasons no one else could possibly understand. What really blows her mind is that Zod has actually agreed to this bizarre request. They finally arrive at Zod's office. Prelude introduces our hero and leaves, as per the great magician's command. The MC now stands in front of the man who, despite being nearly 90 years old, looks like he has just hit 40 and found the secret to never aging. Zod is not just any magician. He is the one who rewrote the rules of magic and practically invented half of the modern magical world. Yet to our boy, he is not some untouchable deity, but a close friend. Zod points out that he would usually prefer a relaxed game of chess with tea, but he has a meeting in around half an hour. Our hero, on the other hand, is simply grateful for the opportunity. As they settle down and discuss chess sets, Zod offers the Empire style or the League of the Western Kingdoms. The MC, however, chooses the North Sea style. Zod finds the choice rather odd, given that our boy is not from the North. But our hero explains that an old friend taught him the style. Zod cannot help but speculate that the MC has been forced into it. The North Sea style is not your everyday chess. It features a board 5 squares wider than the standard one, additional pieces, and rules that make it feel like you are commanding an army instead of playing a game. Warships replace the queens. Pawns that don't move establish supply routes, and any pieces within those routes can move twice per turn. Plus, each player gets 4 bishops and 4 knights. As the game begins, Zod notices that our boy is sharp, though maybe a little too eager at times. The match grows more intense, and in that moment, our hero proposes a bet. Zod sees right through him that the MC's real goal was the bet right from the start, not the game. According to our boy's bet, the loser has to grant the winner a request. But before that, Zod wants to make sure that this cannot involve the tower's resources. Our hero reassures him it is not, which only makes Zod's curiosity spike. But there is one more thing, that is the fact that Zod is at a disadvantage here. Sure, he is a legendary magician, but the MC is just a schoolboy. But our hero corrects him that he is not just any ordinary student, but he is a single ranker. Zod cannot deny that, so he mentions that if he wins, our boy will join the Magitech department after graduation. As for the MC's request, he wants to save that gem for later, because, naturally, the best gifts come with suspense. Zod gets amused by his confidence, but challenges if our boy can actually pull this off. He then looks at our hero and feels a strange sense of déjà vu. There is something familiar about him, a glimpse of the old desire from the past. Zod watches our boy make his move, and he cannot help but feel he seems different. The MC also notices Zod's intense focus and his habit of adjusting glasses with the same calmness he always had. He can see the hint of discomfort in Zod as, after all, they have been rivals for over 6 years and battled in countless chess games in his past life. The memories of those intense matches, along with the comrades he has had back then, bring a small smile to our hero's face. Zod, however, cannot help but point out that our boy seems different now. The MC, on the other hand, does not think much of it. To him, he is still the same guy he had always been. After a long, intense game, our hero finally made the checkmate. But just as our boy is about to enjoy his win, Zod's secretary calls and reminds him about the meeting. Zod then admits to the MC that he did not expect to lose. Our hero, however, knows that Zod could have beaten him if he had more time. Zod now gets to the main point, which is our boy's reward for the victory. The MC, without skipping a beat, demands to trade his idea for sponsorship from the tower. Zod could not hide his surprise about a student pitching an idea worthy of support from the tower. But our hero is confident that his idea is just as good as anyone else's. Zod is not fully buying it, though. He has a feeling it is just another one of our boy's tricks. The MC can sense Zod's doubt, so he requests to borrow some soul stones, to which Zod agrees more out of curiosity than anything. The stones are unprocessed, just regular rocks for now. But our hero does not mind that. In fact, he prefers it that way. He then starts working with them, and something strange happens. The once ordinary stone on the desk begins to react. Zod is taken aback as the stone even starts transmitting sound, with his secretary's voice coming through it. Zod is shocked and demands to know what our boy has done. The MC just smiles as he is not ready to share anything until the deal is settled. Zod also knows that he would be crazy to turn this down, and their deal is done. Later at an ice cream shop, our hero joins Romantica and Pram, who are happily eating their ice cream. They talk about the chess match and have some more chatting. After that, they decide to go shopping and have a good time. Money is not a concern anymore, and they are all set as our boy has the Tower Master's black card, which will pay for everything. Romantica and Pram get really excited upon hearing that and immediately start making plans for shopping, food, and maybe even buying a new wardrobe. They are ready to have a blast. What they don't know, though, is that the first Shadow World event is only 13 days away. At a lavish banquet in Duke Nefleka's villa in Dresden, the capital of the Herbian Empire, Fergman basks in the spotlight. He takes center stage and proudly announces the Blue Moon Party's recognition by the Mage's Tower for 3 years running, along with their renewed support for another year. But of course, that is just the beginning of his self-congratulatory speech. He then boldly declares that their goal is to become the greatest party in Herbian's entire history. Naturally, his supporters cheer and applaud his every word. Azest, the leader of the Blue Moon Party, is also in attendance, and she is surrounded by a crowd of guys who are eager to cling to her. But just then, Elheim makes his entrance. He reminds Azest of their previous discussion about having a mentor-student chat during the entrance exam. The two then slip away to a quiet balcony, and Elheim wastes no time cutting to the chase. He can tell Azest is not exactly thrilled with the Blue Moon Party, and to her surprise, Elheim shares her feelings. It's just that apparently, he does not express his dislike for commoners as openly as the others. Azest is shocked because she thought Elheim was just another aristocrat with a deep hatred for commoners. But he does not get the whole superiority complex. To him, it is all a mystery. Azest explains the genius behind the discrimination, the very fear of being overtaken by commoners, which can be easily manipulated by a little emotional provocation. It is like a magic trick easy to pull off, especially when people like Donetta are just waiting to fall for it. And of course, there is Fergman, the perfect example. Elheim then shifts the focus to Fergman's family history. He warns Azest about Fergman repeating his family's past mistakes. Apparently, House Nifleka has been one of the 5 houses supporting the current emperor during the Imperial Civil War 12 years ago. And while their victory is celebrated, it has come at a huge cost of 80,000 commoners' lives. Fergman's family indeed helped retake the capital, but it was built on bloodshed. Their chat is cut short when Fergman comes looking for them. As soon as he finds them, he is a little too eager to get Elheim back to the party, as many ladies are waiting. Elheim moves to leave, but as he passes by Fergman, the professor warns him to be careful with his words. Now it is just Azest and Fergman, and he is sulking about Elheim's rude comments. Azest, however, is totally unbothered because Elheim was just speaking the truth. But of course Fergman's ego cannot handle it. He reminds Azest of the connection between their families. House Nifleka, the saviors of the empire, and the mighty Rough Palace family, where Azest hails from. It is a pretty classic line about how family names determine everything in life. Status, relationships, and even marriage. Azest now struggles to hide her irritation, and she can feel her mana reacting to Fergman's words. He warns her to be careful, especially when it comes to the relationship between their houses. Azest does not care about the so-called celebration at all, especially when she knows the real story. Blue Moon only won the Mage's Tower sponsorship because the MC's party missed the deadline. Fergman, of course, pretends he has no idea, but once Azest drops that little bombshell, he pretends it does not matter. Azest knows, though, that Fergman purposely changed the deadline to exclude our boys' group, as a coward like him is afraid of them. Fergman gets taken aback upon being exposed and blames Azest for the failure to defeat our hero. He dares her to leave the party if she is so angry. That is an interesting proposition, as Azest has already seen the difference between Fergman's party and the MC's. In our heroes group, there is real teamwork, real harmony, and it's a party that actually works together. Fergman's Blue Moon, on the other hand, is a joke in comparison. With that, Azest makes her decision. She tosses the Blue Moon badge aside and walks away. She does not need a name like Rough Palace to understand what a real party looks like. So, she says goodbye to the Blue Moon party for good. Fergman has just barely calmed himself down when the Mage's Tower delegates arrive. They are here to bid farewell before rushing back to their important duties. But things get interesting when they bring up a new technical advisor the Tower Master himself has recently appointed, and this one comes from the Herbian Academy. That tiny detail sends Fergman into a full panic mode. He desperately wants to know more, at least the advisor's graduation year. But to his horror, the advisor is not even a graduate, but he is still a student. The delegates, apparently too distracted to remember the name, begin searching on their tablet. Fergman, meanwhile, looks ready to explode as he waits. When they finally find the name Desire, it hits Fergman like a thunderbolt. If panic has a face, it's clearly his. On the other side, our hero, Romantica, and Pram are back from a day filled with shopping and theme park rides. Romantica and Pram are still chatting over how much fun they had, but our boy brings them back to reality. He reminds them of their struggles during their last fight against the Outers. Pram goes first, who lacks the experience to spot enemies on his own and only survived thanks to Romantica's help. But it's a fact that Pram does not need reminding of. Romantica is not spared either. While she did her best, it's only the best for her level. The translation of which, according to the MC, is that she is good, but not that good. Now that she is a single ranker, she has to step it up. With their weaknesses laid out, he gives them a grin that practically screams trouble. Romantica immediately senses danger and tries to drag Pram away. Unfortunately, they are too slow, and our hero declares their training will start immediately. Thus begins their journey into training hell, with our boy pushing them hard every evening after morning lectures. Within days, Romantica is done mentally, physically, and emotionally. She begs our hero to stop the evening sessions. As for proof, she points at Pram, who looks like he might just melt into a puddle. But the MC is as unbothered as ever, and refuses. Instead, he quizzes Romantica about Wind Magic's unique traits. She answers that they are speed and range. Our boy agrees, and that is what makes Wind Magicians excellent snipers. But as a second circle magician, she is still stuck in the beginner's level. Then comes the shocker by our hero that she has to reach the third circle in just a few days. Romantica looks at him like he has lost his mind because obviously it's not possible. But the MC is confident that he has a method to make it happen. They then move to the training ground, and Romantica's suspicions deepen when he pulls out a soda can, which brings back memories of a particularly miserable training session in the past. But before she can protest, our boy crushes the can into a sphere and introduces her new challenge, which is to control the air pressure around it and refine its shape from all sides. Romantica, on the other hand, cannot decide if this is genius or just plain torture. Romantica cannot believe her eyes. The MC of all people has just done that right in front of her, and yet he is not even a wind magician or an advanced magician at all. Our hero then tosses the sphere her way so that she can give it a try, and assures her not to worry about the cans, as he has plenty more of them. Romantica has to admit, our boy is a little crazy, but he is trustworthy, so she follows his instructions. As soon as she sees the can start to change shape, she gets excited, loses her focus, and ends up turning the can in a circle like a kid playing with a toy. Our hero snatches the can back and points out with a perfectly straight face if she even knows the difference between a circle and a sphere. Romantica gets irritated because, of course, she is not that bad at geometry. The next day, around noon, the MC is with Pram for training at the outdoor sparring arena. It is time for him to get some hands-on experience, and sparring is the best way to make up for his lack of it. And for that, our boy decides that Pram needs an opponent his level. So naturally, Pram thinks it will be Percival. But no, our hero has something else in mind, a real challenge for our cutie. Then enters Kira, who is a third circle magician, knight-level swordsman, and the so-called true captain of the Mage's Tower Urili branch guards. Our boy has helped their branch during an attack, so here Kira is, ready to give Pram a lesson. Meanwhile, little Pram finds Kira's presence terrifying, and decides it is safe to hide behind his master. Kira, on the other hand, is disappointed when he sees his opponent is a girl. Yes, he really said that. That man mistakes Pram for a girl. That, of course, sets Pram off. Kira then apologizes, but that only makes Pram angrier. Now, he is more determined than ever to prove himself. But before they can start, the MC wants them to wear enchanted shoulder loops that will set off an alarm if they are hit. Kira thinks it will be a breeze for him, but not so for Pram. Our boy, who is stuck in the middle of their bickering, can sense that Kira is good at riling people up. Finally, the duel begins. Pram moves first to land a strike, but Kira blocks like it is nothing. Then Kira counters, and Pram manages to dodge and strike back multiple times. Kira cannot help but admit that Pram is impressive. He is fast and precise. But of course, Kira is not about to give him a free pass. Pram's speed is impressive, but he is still lacking experience. As the battle goes on, Kira sees Pram getting more and more wound up, and that is when he makes his move. Pram barely manages to defend against Kira's next attack. Kira gives him some praise for his reflexes, but warns him that experience is what he really needs. He also mentions that Pram should not put too much distance between himself and a magic knight. Pram, who is already fuming, is practically itching for a challenge. Then Kira decides to throw in some ice magic. A thick fog surrounds them, and Pram is left blind and tries to figure out what to do next. But then Kira's voice echoes in the silence with a piece of advice for Pram to not just stand there when the vision is blocked. Pram then realizes that Kira is behind him. He turns just in time, but it is already too late. Kira has his sword aimed right at Pram's neck. 9 days before the Shadow World event, Romantica is about ready to drop our boys' rigorous training sessions. The MC is working them like robots and barely allowing them a 10-minute break every hour. For Romantica, that is nothing. She needs time to go shopping, grab a slice of cake, and maybe take a nap. Our boy, of course, is not blind to her complaints. He knows she has a point, but with the Shadow World just around the corner, he needs his team in top shape. He cannot exactly tell them that, so instead, he promises that once their weaknesses are gone, they will get some rest. Just as they are talking, a bit of chaos breaks out in the Alpha-class dining hall. Azest, known for her presence, is drawing everyone's attention. A couple of people invite her to join their tables, but she politely ignores them and walks right past to sit with our hero's group. This surprises the trio, especially Romantica. The attention Azest brings to the table makes Romantica lose her appetite. Azest apologizes for that and promises to make it up to them. Romantica, though, is not buying it and suggests she just go sit somewhere else. Her coldness is a little too much for the MC's liking. He wants to protest, but Romantica, with her flawless memory, reminds him of what Azest's party did before. They have, after all, been the ones behind the tower's sponsorship incident. Upon hearing that, Azest decides to leave. But before that, she asks to meet our hero privately after lunch, just the two of them, away from all the glares and whispers. Later at Starling Academy, Azest arrives in the MC's room for their exclusive chat. After some pleasantries and plum tea made by our boy, Azest gets straight to the point. She wants to ask a question, one that will require his full attention. Our hero agrees, though he will only be able to answer based on what he knows. Azest then wastes no time and asks about the grease spell specifically, how he managed to apply it on a 3-dimensional surface. The MC demonstrates by applying the spell to a piece of paper and slides it across the table. He explains that the spell creates a frictionless surface, which is why it's typically used on the ground or floors. Then, he tears the paper into small pieces, dips his finger in the tea, and uses it to shape the paper into a cup and slides it over to Azest. The secret is about dividing the surface into polygons and calculating each one separately, with hexagons being the easiest shape for the job. Azest immediately moves to try it herself. And to her surprise, it is not as easy as our boy made it look. The math is tricky, and the effort it takes is a bit more than she expected. Still, the sensation is thrilling. She then tries to move but slips. Our hero rushes to catch her, but, unpredictably, ends up cornered against the wall by Azest. She now realizes what exactly he had been warning her about. The MC starts sweating from being way too close and requests her to move. Instead of obliging, Azest smiles and asks him to let her join his party. It is the 7th day of Romantica's training program, and she is finally making some progress. Well, sort of. After countless attempts, she has managed to turn the can into a sphere. It is not much, but our hero still praise her for it. But there is no time to relax as they have to move on to the next phase. Romantica wonders what kind of new challenge awaits and follows him, while mentally preparing herself for whatever bizarre task he will throw at her next. Our boy explains that she has finished the essential steps to form a third circle, and now all that is left is actually becoming a third circle magician. Romantica, however, is not entirely convinced and is unsure, but the MC is certain she can handle it. In fact, he offers to use her mana to form the circle for her if she is willing, of course. He just needs to touch her, which means contact with the circle near her heart. Upon hearing that, Romantica assumes the worst, that he means touching her chest, and shouts so loudly that our boy almost has to check if his eardrums are still intact. She is furious, and is convinced that our hero has some impure intentions. But the MC explains that he is simply talking about touching her back, not, well, what she thinks. As the reality of the misunderstanding hits Romantica, her embarrassment is so palpable she could probably turn the whole academy red. When they finally reach the club's room, our hero closes the curtains. Romantica is still shy, but he is short on time as he has to check on Pram as well. As Romantica hesitates and doubts her abilities, the MC is there with that persistent confidence and assures her that she is more than capable. He then walks her through the process. Focus, deep breaths, and start guiding her mana. Romantica does as instructed, but soon feels her mana starting to scatter. Our boy reassures her that he will restrain it in, but only if she keeps pulling it out. As he monitors her mana, he realizes it is far more abundant than he has expected. If anything goes wrong, they could be in for a disaster. He then instructs her to stabilize her mana and guides it into a circle like she has done with the cans. But Romantica feels the pain, and he insists she endure it. She has to refine it, spin it, and create inertia, which will attract more surrounding mana because there is the delicate balance. Too much magic, and it could crush her. Too little, and she might as well be throwing pebbles. The MC has to find that perfect sweet spot. Romantica, on the other hand, is at her limit. She is in pain, tired, and frankly, starting to question why she even signed up for this. But our hero's unwavering belief in her keeps her going. She grits her teeth, fights through the exhaustion, and finally, after what feels like an eternity, she succeeds. She has officially become a third circle magician. It is the 7th day of Pram's training, and his record is still 0 wins. Today, he is up against Kira again, and based on how things have gone before, it is not looking good for him. After fighting with Kira so far, he has also realized that blocking his attacks forever is not going to work. He will just get too tired to even hold his sword, so he decides to try a side attack. But before he can even make a move, Kira is already in front of him. Apparently, thinking too much during a fight is not a great idea, as 1 second too long, and it's over. With no time to rethink his plan, Pram decides to stay put, deflect the attack, and then go for his own. Kira, on the other hand, notices something different. Pram's strikes are faster than before, so fast that he can barely see him swing his sword. But Kira is not about to be scared off. He steps up his game and attacks with a mix of wild and unpredictable moves. Our hero, who is keeping a close eye on their fight, has to admit that Pram is still no match for Kira. Then Kira uses some magic to trap Pram's legs in a hole in the ground and rushes in to finish him off. He probably already thinks he has the victory in the bag. But out of nowhere, Pram leaps into the air, and Kira's enchanted magical loop falls on the ground, marking his defeat. Turns out, Pram has been pretending to be trapped the whole time, all while tricking Kira into thinking he has him cornered. Kira realizes that if Pram had been using a real sword, he would have been in serious trouble. The thought of how badly that could have gone for him makes him freeze for a second. The MC praises Pram for his clever move and calls it a day. He thanks Kira for all her help, but Kira is now genuinely impressed by Pram. He even apologizes for how he had provoked him on their first meeting. He did it just to push him harder, not because he did not like him. Pram, however, is not bothered by it at all. After all, a little teasing before a fight is pretty normal. The day ends with more teasing by Kira about Pram being short and looking like a girl. The next day, July 17th, starts with an announcement during breakfast that catches everyone's attention. Apparently, a shadow transition phenomenon has been spotted, and in 3 days, the shadow world is going to show up. Everyone is told to prepare for battle. The first-year students are about to get their battle outfits, and all party leaders have to head to the distribution center. Percival, who is bored out of his mind, follows Donata just to have something to do. The other students cannot stop chatting about the shadow phenomenon and about what crazy training will come next. The MC, as usual, just walks through the crowd, all while humming like nothing special is going on, while carrying 2 big bags. Pram is dressed in a maid's outfit, and he is serving tea to Romantica when the MC shows up holding what he claims are single-ranker battle uniforms. He wants them to try the outfits on immediately. Romantica and Pram do, and surprisingly, the uniforms fit like they are tailor-made. The outfits look ordinary, but our boy is about to show them something that made them stand out. He then grabs an egg and places it inside one of the uniforms. This leaves Romantica and Pram staring at him like he has lost his mind. Before they can ask questions, the MC hits the outfit with his fire magic and turns the room into a literal flashbang. Both Pram and Romantica shield their eyes, but as the brightness fades, the egg is perfectly fine, and the uniform does not even have a scratch. Then the MC gets to the explanation that these outfits are created using cutting-edge technology from the Mage's Tower. They are enchanted with high-grade defensive spells that can block both physical and magical attacks. The only way they could fail is if the attack's power surpasses the soul crystal embedded in the outfit. He calls these fancy uniforms second-generation battle outfits. Next, our boy asks Pram to hand over his sword. As Pram draws it, our hero instructs him to imagine covering it. When Pram does so, the sword vanishes. Pram gets panicked and looks at the MC, who reassures him that it has just been stored in a pocket dimension, which is a tiny space within the soul crystal. All Pram needs to do is imagine drawing it again, and sure enough, the sword reappears in his hands. Then it's Romantica's turn. Since she does not carry weapons, our boy wants her to imagine something. Romantica, being Romantica, is not easy to play along with his little experiment, so our hero lures her by using a present for mastering third circle magic. She agrees to give it a shot, and as she does, a sniper rifle pops up in her hands. The MC promises to teach her how to use it later. As for now, he explains that the weapon can enhance her magic, increase her range of detection, and even make her as powerful as a fourth circle magician. Our boy then feels somewhat relieved. In his past life, he had asked Zod about these tools, and now it seems like that knowledge is finally paying off. Zod has developed the sniper quickly with minimal guidance, proving that he is, indeed, a genius. With all the demos and explanations now out of the way, it's finally time to tackle the shadow world. The big day arrives. In the Herbian Academy Hall, Dean Justin stands on the stage and delivers the usual dramatic speech. He recounts the grim history of the shadow world, how it emerged centuries ago and threatened humanity's survival. He speaks about the fall of the holy kingdom of Artemis, the countless lives lost, and how humanity was once a mess with knights warring for kings and magicians hiding in their ivory towers. But then Herbian Academy was formed to save the day and train knights and magicians to fight back. Dean Justin does not ask the students for victory, but his priority is their safety and, more precisely, safe return. Meanwhile, in the annex, a professor is hyping the single rankers as warriors destined for greatness. Somewhere in the crowd, Romantica corners the MC with a very valid concern. She is here to confirm if he is really planning to enter the shadow world because, according to the rules, they need 4 members, and their group is 1 person short. Our boy admits he might have forgotten to mention their 4th member, and just in time, Azest makes her entrance. Romantica's scream turns everyone's attention toward her like a fire alarm. She has our boy's collar in a firm grip because he dared to let Azest join their club without even telling her first. Our hero attempts to calm her down, but it only makes her angrier. Pram, on the other hand, has no problem with Azest joining their party, which leaves Romantica to fume on her own. The MC explains that they needed 4 members to enter the shadow world, and Azest is the best option for them. But Romantica is not having it. She is still upset and refuses to let this slide, even as they start moving. What used to be their tight little trio is now a duo with an unwanted new addition as Romantica has been swapped out for Azest. Of course, Romantica is not letting them forget it. She trails behind them, still angry, while our hero silently kicks himself for not giving her a heads up. But he had no choice, as the mission is way too important to mess up. He is not just entering the shadow world for fun, but he has his eye on the emblem of Toa, a so-called basic artifact that can boost mana. And for someone like him, whose mana levels are laughably low, this artifact is a game changer. Eventually, Romantica sighs as her anger cools off a bit. She makes it clear she still does not like Azest, but since it is part of the MC's big plan, she will let it go, at least for now. And our boy thanks her for being understanding. Finally, they reach gate number 2. The professor checks their IDs and goes over the rules, and then he unlocks the gate, and they step through into the shadow world. After going through dimensional transport, our hero lands in a kitchen, not exactly the epic battlefield he has imagined. While he is still trying to figure out what is going on, he spots a live fish flopping around on a counter. Before he can do anything, someone smacks him. He turns around, only to see what looks like a man in a chef's outfit. He is Jeffrin Eastwood, a chef with a lot of experience and even more ego. The MC's first task is to help Jeffrin cook a meal for some mystery guest. Jeffrin hands him a piece of meat to cook but criticizes his knife skills. Our boy pushes himself to the limit and moves like a robot to keep up with Jeffrin's nonstop orders. Finally, he is allowed a break, and Jeffrin even gives him a rare compliment, which leaves our hero blinking in disbelief. While taking a breather, the MC notices some plums that Jeffrin has tossed aside because they seem useless to him, and he is ready to bin them. But our boy knows how the shadow world works and figures that the plums have to be important. It turns out that he is right on cue as a hidden quest pops up, according to which he had to use those plums to make a dish. If he succeeds, he will get bonus points, and failure will result in penalties. The MC thinks quickly and asks Jeffrin about the dessert. When he finds out that it is a chocolate cake, he omits the option of desserts and suggests making tea with the plums. Our boy has an idea for making tea with plums, but first, he needs Jeffrin's approval. Thankfully, Jeffrin's mood is positive, so our hero figures the odds are in his favor. Sure enough, Jeffrin agrees, just as the MC has predicted, and finally the tea is finally ready. As night falls, our boy is washing the dishes when Jeffrin appears and demands to know if the tea was our hero's masterpiece. The MC answers that he just learnt the recipe from someone. Jeffrin then insists that our boy make it again. Our boy gets it that this must mean the Lord has actually enjoyed it, but his smirk annoys Jeffrin, who punches him to get rid of it. Jeffrin then mentions that the Lord wants our hero to make the tea every morning. Just then, the system also announces that the MC has completed his mission and is rewarded with the prestigious title of attendant, which also means he will be serving tea daily. As soon as he hears this, our hero wants to hurry off to avoid more potential beatings by Jeffrin. But Jeffrin, in an unexpected twist, pats him on the head and tells him that he will do just fine in the future. The next day, the MC and Jeffrin set off to buy ingredients. As they travel, our boy notices a group of people, and Jeffrin explains that they are vagrants, a group that has been steadily increasing in numbers ever since they realized the Lord is actually kind to them. With winter coming, the Lord cannot kick them out, but Jeffrin feels no sympathy towards them. Rather, he complains about their laziness, how they waste food, and how they do nothing but eat all day. Our hero notices that kind of behavior does sound familiar, like those alphas back in the Herbian Academy, who think they are too good for anyone. Once they reach the market, Jeffrin goes off to buy plums while our boy stretches his long-seated body. That is when a kid appears and asks the MC for a coin. Our boy has no coin, so instead he offers the kid some prunes. The kid snatches them up without hesitation, like it's the best thing she has eaten in days. Our hero then offers more in exchange for a few questions, and he starts off with introductions. The kid introduces herself as Larica, and the MC learns she lives with her mother and younger brother. She mentions the free food at the square but adds that it is never enough, and it leaves her hungry every day. Our boy feels pity for her and gives her a handful more prunes. Lyrica, in return, gives him a handkerchief her mother has made, and upon looking at that, our hero cannot deny that the embroidery is good, and it will fetch a nice price at the market. Lyrica, however, explains how the people in the market won't let them in. Just then, our boy gets an alert from the system about the vagrant issue plaguing Evernatten. It is one of the two major problems troubling the region. The poor little girl then starts crying that her mother has told her this is just the way things are. The MC wants to protest that it does not have to be that way, but before he can, Jeffrin comes back and scolds him for not waiting where he is supposed to. Our boy reassures Lyrica to meet him later at the back door of the castle, where he will give her more food. Lyrica gets brightened by the promise and agrees. As our hero climbs into the carriage, he remembers the system has mentioned two big problems in the region, and now he is itching to know what the second one is. Meanwhile, in the snowy mountains, a group of Esteban is preparing for something. At the Grand Evernatten mansion, from today onwards, our boy steps into his new role as the ever-loyal attendant to Lord Wilhelm Evernatten. His mission is simple, which is to build some trust with the Lord. The more trust he gains, the closer he gets to unlocking the story of this mysterious domain. Our hero enters Wilhelm's office with a tea tray in hand, but the Lord barely looks up and just sips tea in silence. The awkward quiet gets to the MC, so he suggests shutting the window to block out the chilly breeze. Wilhelm, however, gives him a stare and refuses. Our boy tries again, this time by offering to help with the stack of paperwork. But Wilhelm makes it clear that any interruption while he is working would be a huge distraction. And just like that, without even realizing it, our hero's attempt to engage with the Lord caused Wilhelm's affinity level to drop to neutral. And it did not take long for the MC to realize he had made a mistake. Later, our boy finds himself cleaning dishes in the kitchen, not because he is a culinary expert, but because Jeffrin has not bothered finding a kitchen assistant yet. 4 days have passed with no progress, and the thoughts of Wilhelm's cold attitude haunt him. Just as he is about to lose it, someone sneaks up behind him and covers his eyes. Our boy gets startled and spins around to find none other than Pram, standing there smiling. Pram, who is clad in armor, pulls his master into an enthusiastic hug, all while forgetting that the metal edges of his armor are not exactly comfortable. After an awkward laugh and a step back, Pram reveals he is now a soldier stationed at the castle, which has made it easier for him to track the MC down. They then step outside for a chat, where our boy vents about the growing problem with the vagrants, which is becoming more serious by the day. Pram, however, is more concerned about the shadow world they are stuck in, which, for some reason, is still technically part of the Holy Kingdom. Our hero explains that the kingdom has fallen apart except for Orlan, which is now their new home. As they talk, the MC accidentally mentions it is not his first time in a real shadow world, but immediately, he realizes his blunder and redirects the conversation to Pram's mission, which is to achieve some grand feat in the annual battle against Esteban and earn a knighthood. However, things are not going very well for him, as scouts reported no Esteban activity near the city, which leads the knights to believe the Estebans had given up after years of failed attacks. The MC, on the other hand, finds the idea laughable. He reminds Pram of the terrifying Esteban warrior they have encountered before at the Wujukun's repair shop. Pram gets goosebumps at the memory and agrees that Estebans are not the type to give up. Our boy then points out that Esteban probably is not attacking outright because they are planning something sneakier, like raiding the castle's granaries. With winter coming, food is a big prize, and Esteban won't miss the chance to grab it. Our hero also suspects that there is more to this than just Esteban. Shadow worlds often revolve around two big opposing forces, so maybe Wilhelm has a personal enemy stirring up trouble. The MC shares his theory with Pram, and as the pieces start falling into place, he realizes the Estebans might already be making their move. He then rushes Pram to follow him as they need to act fast. Meanwhile, an Esteban on the other side of the castle passes along some important news. The Esteban forces have seen the perfect opportunity because Evernatten has let down its guard. The ambush is set for 3 days from now, and our boy's gut instinct was totally right. It is the day before the Esteban attack, and Pram draws up a simple map of the surrounding areas. Our hero decides to check the higher, more vulnerable spots like the city walls behind the watermill, the east and west sides, and the granary where grains are stored. To Pram, it seems like a lot to cover, but our boy explains that the domain is huge and there are way too few guards. And on top of that, the knights, in their infinite wisdom, have decided that no attack is coming, so patrols are as light as a summer breeze. The MC then asks if Pram has asked his colleagues to step up patrols, and Pram admits that they have not bothered to listen. Our hero pieces it together, as it is not that they don't trust Pram, but to get them to believe him, Pram will have to work on improving their affinity with him. Pram feels a little gloomy because he did not do a good job, but our boy promises they will figure it out together. Just as they are about to get to work, the MC remembers something important, so he rushes off and leaves Pram behind. What our hero was about to forget is his secret meetup with Lyrica. Thankfully, he gets there just in time, and when she shows up, he hands her the food. She is happy, but our boy warns her that he won't be able to bring her food the next day because he will be busy. To make up for it, he has packed enough food for 2 days. Lyrica misunderstands that he might be in trouble because of her, but he assures her it's nothing like that. He then makes her promise not to go anywhere near the castle tomorrow. She agrees, and with that, our hero saves Lyrica from the Esteban attack the next day. The next day, snow is falling, and Pram complains about the soldiers who are too busy enjoying the snow to guard properly. Our boy, however, knows better that they have to stay sharp. The MC then asks Pram if he is wearing his battle outfit, which of course he is, hidden under his regular clothes. They then move to check the east and west sides, all while trying to stay alert. When they reach the guard checkposts, Pram notices they are empty and assumes the guards are off somewhere warming up or having a chat. But our hero, who has developed the ability to sense when things are about to go terribly wrong, feels like something is not right. He rushes to one of the cabins and finds that the guards have been killed with arrows. Pram speculates that the Estebans are already inside the castle, but our boy is not convinced they have gotten that far yet. Then, the system confirms that the Estebans have begun infiltrating the castle, and it is all happening quietly and sneakily, and most people inside the walls have no clue. Pram decides to rush to check the other checkpoints, but our hero senses something and protects Pram from an incoming arrow. He then uses his Howl Vision spell and spots none other than Bloody Hawk Claw, the chief of the Hawk tribe and supposedly the greatest threat around. As if that was not enough to ruin their day, other Estebans start climbing the wall. At the same time, somewhere at another checkpoint, A guard hears something strange and mentions it to his partner, who has not heard a thing. So, the first guard decides to check it out. But before doing so, he gets killed, along with his partner, by an Esteban. The chief then announces that they will be entering the castle. The Estebans then start scaling the castle walls like they are on some kind of climbing competition. They look to their chief for instructions, whose eyes are glued to the granary in the distance. Meanwhile, at a nearby guard checkpost, one poor soldier is still alive and hiding. He curses the scouts who assured them that the Estebans won't dare attack again. He knows that he needs to ring the bell to warn the others, but standing up might just get him killed. As the silence stretches on, he finally spots an Esteban, and that is the end of his story. The chief, on the other hand, notices the possibility of more hidden guards. He orders 10 Estebans to stay behind and wipe out the remaining soldiers on the walls, while the rest follow him toward the granary. As the Estebans get on top of the walls, a few of them start to get really concerned about their chief. They have wiped out all the soldiers, but he is still hesitant and worried the dead might come back to life. Some think it's smart, others think it's cowardly. One brave Esteban then reminds the others that the chief's wisdom is above theirs and doubt is not allowed. The chief has given an order, and that is it. They move on, but a few are still pretty sure their leader is just trying to find an excuse not to fight. One Esteban notices his chief's arrow, and before he can even blink, he is stabbed by none other than Prom. The MC counts with Esteban dead, only 9 remain. He then turns his gaze to post 13 and the bell that awaits his signal. Pram suggests heading to post 14, but our hero turns him down. It is too far, and by the time they get there, the granary will be long empty. They have no choice but to go through the Estebans and head straight for post 13. As they make their way, Pram encounters an Esteban itching for a fight. The Esteban charges and is excited to finally face a survivor, but Pram's sword slips from his hand and flies through the air. The Esteban gets thrilled by the mishap and dares Pram to dodge his next strike. But Pram is faster and kicks Esteban off the wall. Just as Pram thinks it is over, another Esteban appears and gets ready to use magic. The MC, however, cancels the spell with his inverse operation. The Esteban then switches to physical combat, but it is too late. Pram is already on him, with his sword drawn, and with one swift motion, Esteban is out of the game. Our hero and Pram then see a swarm of Estebans rushing toward them. Pram wants to take them all on by himself, but our boy wants him to save his strength. From here on, the MC decides to take charge of the fight. Our hero dares the Estebans to make their move, and then he casts a melting spell, which turns the snowflakes around them into water that drenches the Estebans. But that is not enough for our boy. He then dries the ground on their side, a move so smooth it even impresses Pram. Still, the MC is not done yet and tells Pram to close his eyes. The Estebans, on the other hand, scratch their heads and wonder why our hero has stopped attacking. One of them, however, has a moment of clarity and realizes that our boy is far more dangerous than their own chief. He starts running, but the MC compliments his quick thinking and then unleashes a lightning strike. The current shoots through the water and fry all the Estebans, except for the one lucky enough to escape. It seems that the clever Esteban has destroyed the bridge to block the electricity. Our hero is about to finish him off, but before he can, the Esteban drops dead. Apparently he was too slow to dodge the current attack. With the 10 Estebans now out of the way, our boy kneels down as he feels exhausted. Pram, however, is amazed that the MC has pulled off a third circle spell when he is just a first circle magician. Our hero explains it's all thanks to his battle armor, which channels mana from its soul crystal. But still, his desire to grab the emblem of Tau grows stronger than ever. Meanwhile, in the granary, the Esteban chief and his men are having a field day, as they slaughter knights left and right and raid the granary. They find enough food to last them a year, and the chief orders them to take as much as they can. Some of the Estebans even start drinking the wine like they are at a party. But the chief's eagle eyes spot that sand is spilling out of one of the boxes. He immediately orders his men to open every box, and sure enough, all of them are filled with sand. One of the Estebans calls it a punishment from God. But just when things are looking too easy, the bells begin to ring. The chief gives his men orders for a hasty retreat. As the Estebans move to leave, the chief spots something on the ground and shouts for the others to back up. But it's too late as an explosion rips through the air. And there, standing in all her glory, is none other than our infamous magic knight Azest. Azest acts calm, cool, and confident as the chief of Esteban takes aim. He fires his first arrow, but she conjures a wall of ice that stops it cold. She barely spares it a glance. Azest then uses magic, and in an instant, the whole area transforms into a frozen palace that looks sparkling but deadly at the same time. The Estebans freeze in place and look around like they have accidentally wandered into a nightmare. The chief, on the other hand, seems pretty chill. He is clearly noticing the massive magical power Azest is using. Sitting on what looks like an ice throne, Azest gives them a chance to just surrender. But instead of taking the hint, the chief starts laughing loudly. His men also join in like it's some big joke. Azest gets it that they want to die so badly, so without wasting any more time, she summons sharp ice bolts and sends them flying towards them. The poor Estebans don't stand a chance, and they drop like flies. As she watches them fall, Azest has a moment of realization that for them to have reached her, they must have wiped out all the guards at the wall, and she decides that these fools are not walking out alive. But then, out of nowhere, her golem, the one she has made with the frozen palace, is destroyed by an arrow. She turns to see and finds the chief, who is now glowing with some kind of red aura. The chief shouts to his men to just stick together and endure while he will handle the dangerous stuff. He then fires another arrow her way. This time, she slashes it midair with her sword. Then, using her grease spell to move faster than anyone can follow, she zips through the fog and appears right in front of him. The chief stands there, stunned, as he did not expect her to pull that off. She strikes him, but then her instincts kick in and warn her that something is not right. She spins around to see the sword raised, but she is not fast enough, and she gets hit badly. The chief, who she thought had died at her hands, is now transformed into a new, much stronger form, and he has no intention of letting this fight end in her favor. Azest and Chief of Esteban are caught up in a fierce fight. The chief notices her armor is slowing her down, so he tosses her aside and sends her crashing into a wall of ice. He then charges at her, all while ready to finish the fight, but Azest summons ice spears and causes a massive explosion. When the smoke clears, the chief is still standing, and he is completely unharmed. Azest, on the other hand, is running out of energy, with her system warning that her armor's power is below 20%. But she is not about to show any weakness. The chief can tell she is barely holding on. He wants her to keep fighting, though not because he pities her, but because he does not want her to fall too easily. For him, this fight is personal. He wants her defeat to honor his fallen comrades. Azest gets sick of his talk and charges at him with all she has. She swings her sword with determination and dodges his counterattack. The chief seems to enjoy the fight and throws her across the battlefield with another strike. She hits the ground hard, and pieces of her armor fall off. But to his surprise, she gets back up. Exhausted but standing, she calls him a monster. Yet her words are not for him. They are for someone else's desire. She thinks of him as her inspiration and vows to grow stronger, stronger than even our boy. With that, she transforms her sword into a magiblade. The chief is confused by her sudden determination, but is not too worried. He figures her new weapon won't make a much difference. Azest, however, proves him wrong. She summons an icy wave, and though the chief blocks it, his hand begins to freeze. His weapon cracks, and before he knows it, his hand is gone. He coughs up blood and realizes he is lost. Azest, on the other hand, is also barely able to stand and collapses soon after. She tries to say something to our hero, but the words never come as she blacks out. The next morning at Evernatten Castle, Pram and the MC find themselves in restraints. Wilhelm demands to know how they have known about the Esteban attack in advance. The MC refuses to spill any details. This makes Wilhelm grow more frustrated by the second, and he warns him that if he keeps quiet, they will have no choice but to think he is either Esteban's spy or an enemy. Our boy, however, has a point that he doubts Wilhelm would even understand if he tries explaining. Then Wilhelm changes the topic and brings up Jeffren's explanation that all the food storage was covered with sand during the attack. Our hero confirms it, and Wilhelm's immediate thought is that the three of them must have moved all the food. The MC corrects him that Esteban's men were in such a rush they only had time to take food from near the door, so they only replaced those boxes with sand. Wilhelm is still not quite satisfied, and he asks what the MC had planned to do if the Esteban decided to burn all the food. Our boy has an answer to that as well, that he had made them believe the food was sand so they would not burn it in the first place, as he knew Esteban's men would be too flustered to think clearly when they realize they have been duped. Wilhelm points out that they could have drilled holes in the boxes to check for sand. Our hero explains that they left the rations on top to make it look like they are trying to hide something, just to throw them off even more. The conversation then circles back to where it started. That is how the MC figured out Esteban's plan. Our boy calls it a simple hunch and does not offer more details. Wilhelm then reminds him that messing with food in such situations is a sure way to be labeled a traitor, and if Esteban had not invaded, the two of them, including Jeffren, could all be dead by now. Our hero agrees and is ready to accept death. After all, as a vagrant, he has seen it all, from the slow death of hunger to the desperation that comes with an empty stomach. If giving his life could prevent the granary from being raided, he would gladly sacrifice himself. But before they go on further, a sudden chaos erupts outside. In the next moment, Jeffren bursts inside and begs Wilhelm not to punish Pram and the MC. If anyone has to be punished, Jeffren is more than willing to take the fall. Wilhelm points out that Pram and our boy are already standing there, so Jeffren's dramatic entrance is a bit unnecessary. Jeffren gets relieved after seeing the two alive. He then apologizes and leaves them to finish their discussion. Our hero is now on the ground thanks to the bump on his head from Pram's attack, and Wilhelm apologizes for his friend's odd behavior. He then releases them from their restraints and offers an apology for that too. But Wilhelm is not done yet as he orders Pram to kneel, takes his sword, and knights him on the spot. He does not stop there as well and compliments the MC for his brain and talent and apologizes for earlier doubts. He then asks for our boy's help in his future work. Just like that, our hero has cleared the mission and is now officially appointed as gamesman. His affinity for Wilhelm is also upgraded to trusted. Just when the MC thinks things are finally settling down, a guard announces the Grandmaster's arrival. Wilhelm introduces her, but our hero and Pram both recognize her right away. It's Azest. The next day, our boy finds himself in the prison, and he is here to have a little chat with the Bloody Hawk Claw. Our boy's mission regarding the Estebans is not exactly smooth sailing, and he is only about 40% done. Capturing the chief of the Hawk clan should be a big win, but instead, it feels like babysitting a spoilt brat. At least with their leader locked up, the Hawk clan won't be attacking Evernatten anytime soon. Our boy now enters the jail, and his eyes immediately land on the chief's fancy earrings. The guy is a descendant of Khan, a name famous in history for being a massive pain in everyone's neck. With that lineage, our hero knows the chief's ego is sky high. What surprises him more is that Azest has taken down the chief all by herself. The MC suggests unlocking the chief's shackles and hopes that he won't bite. The chief, however, spits right in our boy's face. Our boy does not let it bother him, and just simply wipes his face, and then lays out his offer that he will free the chief's men if he agrees to a deal. Instead of answering, the chief demands to know who the MC is and how he knows about something called aliyad, which is an act of generosity given by the victorious chief tribe after a war. Our boy introduces himself as the gamesman of Evernatten, but the chief does not care. His focus is on Azest, the person who actually captured him. Our hero points out that while Azest may have caught him, it's him who sabotaged their supplies by replacing food with sand. Upon hearing that, the chief gets furious and starts cursing and yelling. Then the chief calms down by himself and flat out refuses the deal. The MC then switches tactics and points out how he is only thinking about his honor and not the lives of his people. The chief argues that his men will understand his decision, but our boy reminds him that as a leader, he does not have the luxury of thinking like a lone warrior. He also hints that the chief has no one strong enough to replace him. The MC can sense the chief is starting to crack, so he makes his final offer: food and a treaty that will recognize their strength instead of calling it a defeat. The chief finally agrees. Over in Caravan territory, Romantica is not having a great time. She is stuck playing merchant, which she is good at, but it is not exactly her dream job. She is also feeling restless and, unfortunately, finds herself thinking about our boy. She immediately shakes off the thought because clearly, she is losing her mind. Right then, Emil shows up and snaps her out of her daydream. He hands over the information she has asked for about the Holy City. Apparently, things there are a mess. High taxes, weird rumors, and people running for the hills. Some claim an evil spirit is haunting the place, but Romantica is not buying it. She tells Emil to stick to the facts and stop wasting time on ghost stories. Emil also points out that chaos is spreading fast, with the city's leadership doing nothing but raising taxes. Romantica figures that with so many people fleeing, they will probably head for Evernatten, which has been taking in refugees. She has heard of the place before, especially its success in stopping Esteban's invasion. She then opens a map and locates Evernatten. Once she does, a main mission pops up for her to continue her work there. The mission is to fix two problems, but most of it is already done since a peace deal is made between Evernatten and the Hawk tribe. Her other mission, Vagrant, is 30% done because the public is calm, crimes are rare, and vagrants are being managed well. She then tells Emil to pack up as they are heading to Evernatten, and she has decided to sell some things there. Our hero is busy brewing tea for Wilhelm. After serving the tea, he gets back to his work desk, which, unsurprisingly, is as messy as ever. It does not matter which world he is in, original or shadow, his desk is a constant reminder that organization is not part of his skill set. He ignores the mess and unrolls the map and starts to focus on the Holy City. It is right on the front lines and acts as a shield against enemies. Evernatten, on the other hand, is a small territory with troops that could probably take on an army twice their size. Our hero figures that if they use their military muscle as a main revenue source, they could easily manage. Sending troops to the border would bring in support funds, and Evernatten's reputation for safety would keep people flocking in. As for now, the territory is doing okay financially, but the real headache is the vagrants. It is tough trying to figure out who is a criminal, especially when no one knows where they come from. Expelling them is not really an option anymore. Food is not the issue for the vagrants. Even after the Hawk tribe has received their share of rations, there are still plenty left. He then opens a manual and goes through the crime stats and realizes that crime rates have actually gone down after they entered the shadow world. And the report is made by none other than Azest herself. Now our boy is at the Evernatten Knights post and eyes the troops training around. There are plenty of soldiers, so peace in the area seems to be sorted, at least for now. But of course, that is not why he is here. He walks over to Azest's office, and just before knocking, he overhears a heated argument from inside. Naturally, he cannot help but lean in to listen. Inside, a girl, Ayulan, from what he can gather, is arguing with Azest. She debates that if things keep going the way they are, they will run out of food, crime will go through the roof, and everything will fall apart. Azest, however, insists it is their job to make sure that does not happen. Ayulan is not having any of that. She blames the vagrants for everything, as all the problems started when their lord let them in. Azest calls her rude and wants her to know her place. Ayulan apologizes for being too emotional and is promptly told to leave. Our hero does not want to be caught listening in, so he steps aside. As Ayulan walks out, she notices our boy and asks to state his identity. When she hears he is the gamesman, she gives him a look like he is the last person she wants to talk to. Of course, he is just another vagrant to her. After his weird encounter with Ayulan, the MC then steps into the office, and, after asking Azest's condition, he gets straight to the point. But Azest suggests they take their conversation outside. So, they head out for a walk and then run into a woman who seems to know Azest a little too well. She hands them cookies, one pack for Azest and one for the MC, all while misunderstanding that he is Azest's boyfriend. Our hero looks more confused than anything and tries to explain, but the woman is not having it. So, he turns to Azest for help, but Azest just smiles, thanks the woman for the cookies, and, of course, does not bother to correct her. Azest then takes our boy's, or should we say her boyfriend's, hand and starts walking away. Our hero tries to stop her, but Azest just pulls him along. Eventually, they find a quiet spot to talk. Azest starts to explain her mission about the vagrants. She is worried about public peace, which is her top priority. She has handled the small stuff and passed off the bigger problems to the central area, but the real solution is still nowhere in sight. Her success rate is at 30%. The MC compares it to his previous mission of Esteban, which was a piece of cake, but this one is a mess. But then he suddenly realizes something. It is not just about fixing the problem. They have been overlooking someone important all along, the most crucial person. Our hero rushes into the castle's busy kitchen and spots Jeffrin playing around with Lyrica. Lyrica being there is not a big deal because she is just helping Jeffrin with the cooking. But our boy is not there to chat or eat. He wants information about Wilhelm from Jeffrin. But there is one problem. Jeffrin is not exactly an open book, especially when it comes to Wilhelm. The MC brings up Jeffrin's connection to the Lord, which Jeffrin does not take well and throws a knife at our hero. Luckily, our poor boy moves just in time to avoid it. Meanwhile, Lyrica finishes preparing the sauce and wants the MC's help to move it. While they work, Jeffrin is lost in thoughts. He does not want to talk about that particular topic, but he also realizes it is not something worth hiding. Finally, he decides to share and tells Lyrica to take a break and leave our hero to handle the cooking instead. Our boy gets completely off guard, but then finds himself stuck in the kitchen while Jeffrin just sits back while enjoying a cigar and starts telling the story. He begins by talking about how he first met Wilhelm. It was in the Holy Society, back when Wilhelm was a cardinal working for the Holy Emperor. Jeffrin, at that time, ran a small restaurant in the city, and Wilhelm was one of his regular customers. Wilhelm liked to visit Jeffrin's place to get away from prying eyes and, of course, to enjoy the delicious food. One night, over drinks, Wilhelm confessed to Jeffrin that he is a cardinal, and that he comes to the restaurant to avoid the attention that comes with his position and to relax. Their chat was interrupted when a group of knights entered the restaurant and immediately recognized Wilhelm. After some awkward greetings, they all sat down with him to chill out and enjoy the drinks. Things took a serious turn when Wilhelm's life fell apart. Wilhelm once argued with the emperor about a land that was about to be judged by the goddess. The emperor believed the people there deserved punishment for their sins, but Wilhelm did not agree. He wanted to save the innocent lives that will be lost. However, his protest did not go down well. The emperor stripped Wilhelm of his title, exiled him to his hometown, and left him a shadow of his former self. Upon remembering all those painful memories, Jeffrin's eyes gets teary because, in his opinion, Wilhelm has been foolish to throw away everything, but at the same time, he cannot help but admire his courage. He requests our boy to take care of Wilhelm. After leaving the kitchen, our hero is now deep in thought. Wilhelm's story is heartbreaking. He has sacrificed everything for his people, and yet, he is forgotten. The MC cannot stop wondering what Wilhelm might have done to erase himself from history. As he wanders down the hall, he spots Ayulan standing outside Wilhelm's room. She knocks on the door and requests a meeting to discuss an important matter. Ayulan marches into Wilhelm's room. She is here to deliver a report to him about the state of public peace since Azest is too busy to deal with it. She hands him the report and starts the highlights, or rather lowlights. 7 major crimes, including murder and arson, plus 30 smaller ones. Most of the offenders turn out to be vagrants. Wilhelm listens and then tells the MC to take the report, but Ayulin throws our poor boy a glare sharp enough to slice through steel, which leaves him wondering what he did to deserve that kind of hostility. Then, Ayulin presents a petition and suggests Wilhelm exile the criminals. Wilhelm wants to know why she is handing it to him, to which she responds that it reflects the people's feelings. Wilhelm decides to stick with the usual plan and let the courts handle it. But Ayulin is being as persistent as a bad cold. She drops to her knees and begs for tougher action. This makes Wilhelm ask if she expects him to kick out all the vagrants. She clarifies that no, but insists he at least stop being so soft on criminals. Overwhelmed and possibly questioning all his life choices, Wilhelm tells her to leave the petition on his desk and promises to think about it. Wilhelm then asks our hero for tea while Ayulin leaves, all while glaring at our boy again. Once Ayulin is gone, Wilhelm turns to the MC, probably hoping for some sanity. He wants to know our hero's opinion regarding the petition. Our boy, who used to be a vagrant himself, knows that he has to be careful with his words. In his judgment, her points are not entirely baseless, but he thinks kicking out all vagrants is a bit much. He knows that while vagrants do commit a lot of crimes, maybe the knights could step up their game. Wilhelm, however, already feels he needs to be stricter. The MC notices Wilhelm's stressed-out expression and suggests a middle ground, that is to exile only the criminals already sentenced to death, which might send a strong enough message. Wilhelm seems to agree, but just as our hero starts feeling relieved, his mission progress drops by 3%. This out-of-nowhere decrease hits our boy like a bolt of lightning. He then goes over the whole situation in which Wilhelm has always been seen as a hero, the kind who puts his people above everything else, even his own sanity. But history has a way of showing that being a hero often means ending up in impossible situations. And now, here he is again, stuck between his ideals and the needs of his people. The next day, our hero meets with Azest and Pram. Pram mentions Romantica, who is probably somewhere other than Evernatten. Our boy, however, reassures him that she will be fine on her own. Azest gets to the main point that if this meeting is about the drop in the MC's mission progress, our hero confirms it and mentions that he has been digging into how they handled vagrants in the past. He shows them a handkerchief given to him by Lyrica, made by her mother, who cannot enter the market because she is a vagrant. Our boy knows that while kicking out the vagrants might seem like the easy answer, the shadow world clearly has other ideas. Unlike the past, where Esteban's schemes turned everything into a mess, this time, they might actually have a shot at solving things differently. Their discussion, however, is interrupted when a guard bursts in, looking like he has seen a ghost, and calls for Azest. Apparently there is an emergency at the castle wall. The trio hurries over and finds the guards looking like they would rather be anywhere else. Azest demands to know what is going on. When they look down from the wall, they see a massive crowd of people gathered outside the castle, stretching out as far as the eye can see. The shouts outside the gates are deafening, like a never-ending headache that just won't quit. The crowd wants to get in, and they are yelling and demanding as if their lives depend on it, which, to be fair, probably do. Our boy stands in the middle of it all and looks like someone who has signed up for an easy job, but is now stuck leading a disaster. Pram and Azest also wait for him to say something. Then a messenger shows up with Wilhelm's message of 2 options. Either follow Wilhelm's idea and open the gates to let everyone in, or decide himself what to do. This further increases the pressure on our hero's shoulders. Azest also reminds him that letting the crowd in will destroy all the order they have worked so hard to build. With no better choice, the MC orders the gates to be opened. He also requests Azest to keep the ones coming under control. And just then, the mission's progress further decreases, and they are down to 12% and barely hang on. Days drag by and things only get worse. The mission's progress hits rock bottom at 1% and everyone is on edge. A council meeting is going on, and Ayulin expresses her frustration that they are running out of food. The knights are overstretched, and the growing number of vagrants has become unmanageable. She suggests exiling the vagrants as the only way to regain control. Our boy, however, wants to stick to Wilhelm's principles, and throwing the vagrants out goes against everything Wilhelm believes in. But Ayulin is not having it. The two of them argue, with Ayulin pointing out that our hero, being a former vagrant, just does not get what it means to protect Evernatten's people. Meanwhile, the MC is stuck as he tries to figure out an impossible solution. Finally, Wilhelm steps in, since he has had enough of their bickering. He silences the room and turns to Ayulin, and reminds her for the 100th time to stop using our boy's past as an insult. She apologizes, though it does not really seem like she means it. Wilhelm then thanks our hero for sticking to his ideals, but admits they are out of time. They cannot save everyone, and it is time to make the hard choice. He then orders the knights to tell the vagrants they are not welcome anymore. Ayulin and her crew nod like they have just won an argument, while the MC looks completely crushed. Azest also notices and feels uneasy. Things are going downhill fast, and the realization of helplessness only makes it worse for her. Then Ayulin approaches Azest with instructions to gather the knights and carry out Wilhelm's orders. Azest, however, glances at our boy, who looks entirely defeated. But then, just when it seems like everything is about to fall apart, our hero suddenly drops to his knees in front of Wilhelm and pleads for 2 days to find a solution. The MC can see knights handing out food to the vagrants as he is on inspection. Wilhelm has thrown him a lifeline or a ticking time bomb by giving him 2 days to come up with a miracle. If he fails, Wilhelm's decision will stay set in stone. Of course, our hero has a plan, which is to find more vagrants like Lyrica's mother, nurture their talents, and gather resources. But there is an issue of needing months to pull it off. Just then, a knight calls his name and snaps him out of his thoughts. And then, Lyrica comes running toward him like a miniature tornado and crashes into him for a hug. For a moment, the MC manages a soft smile and kneels down. He apologizes to Lyrica for how things have turned out. Her response is peak innocence as she hands him a snowman toy and earnestly asks him to look after it and Jeffrin while she is away. Our hero accepts it, and as Lyrica leaves, he cannot help but overhear 2 knights complaining about the task of distributing food to the vagrants. Then, as if the universe wants to add a cherry on top of his bad day, Ayulin arrives. But surprisingly, this time she assures him that she holds no grudges about the land disputes and hopes he will come up with a good solution. But the MC can tell she wants him to fail, and she proves him right by reminding him that as a vagrant himself, he should probably leave too. After all, if he stays, others might get wrong ideas. Upon hearing that, Azest looks ready to kill Ayulin, but our hero holds her back. The last thing he needs now is internal bickering on top of everything else. He tells her to let it go, but Azest can see how troubled he looks, even if he won't admit it. Just then, a commotion breaks out as someone argues loudly with the knights and insists on seeing our boy. The knights are trying to dismiss them as just another vagrant, but the MC recognizes the voice instantly. He pushes through knights and finds Romantica, as bold as ever. After catching her up on the mess that Evernatten is going through, Romantica reminds him that he is not alone. He has chosen and trained his party for moments like this, and it is time to trust them. Our hero agrees to go along with her plan, and then Romantica declares that she will handle the food issue. Romantica leads them through the forest like she knows exactly where she is going. Our hero is curious about where they are headed, but Ayulin, who was not even invited to go with them, is more interested in making fun of Romantica. She questions how someone like her, who is a supposed vagrant, plans to solve the food problem. Azest tries to step in, but Romantica stops her and makes it clear that she is not bothered. She does not even know who Ayulin is or why she is tagging along. Ayulin then introduces herself like she is someone important, but Romantica points out that being ranked high does not give her the right to be rude. Ayulin does not take too kindly to that and reaches for his sword. Romantica, on the other hand, does not flinch. Ayulin then draws his blade as she wants to silence Romantica. But before she can make an even bigger fool of herself, a man appears out of nowhere and grabs Ayulin's hand. Apparently this guy is Romantica's bodyguard. He challenges Ayulin to go ahead and try. Romantica, however, orders everyone to stand down. And from the way people are hiding in the trees, it seems like Romantica has backup ready. She tells Ayulin this is her one and last warning. Ayulin, however, keeps on pressing the point that it is impossible to fix the vagrant problem. To Romantica, it sounds more like Ayulin does not want her to succeed. Meanwhile, our boy gets curious about Romantica and her role in all of this, and Romantica reveals that she is a merchant. Finally, they reach their destination, which turns out to be a busy merchant camp run by Romantica. She explains her move that after she heard about the vagrant issue, she bought up all the food before prices went through the roof. The MC is impressed by her quick thinking, but also a little shocked that Romantica has already taken care of the mission without taking help from anyone else. And of course, Romantica has to mention that she is a third circle magician, which helped to keep bandits away from her hard-earned food. Then Emil shows up, and Romantica introduces him to our hero and then jumps right into business. Upon asking Azest how long this food will last, she comes to know that it will be good enough until winter. Our boy gives Romantica a compliment, and she demands more of it. Emil, however, reminds her that giving all the food away for free is not exactly a smart move if they want to stay in business. But before they can get down with financial worries, a new mission pops up for Romantica and the MC, in which they need to make a deal with each other. Our hero suggests trading the food on credit, with Evernatten to pay her back in 6 months and lend their noble name to her merchant group. Ayulin tries to protest, but no one really bothers to care about her complaints. Romantica considers the offer and figures it is not a terrible idea. Emil, however, points out that Evernatten's reputation is not exactly stellar. Romantica argues that even though Evernatten is a fallen noble house, using their name will still give them more credibility and might scare off any thieves. Over time, the deal will work out. Emile cannot argue on that, and Romantica adds one more condition to the deal. Her merchant group will become Evernatten's exclusive partner and will be treated like actual residents of Evernatten. Our hero accepts the proposal and officially welcomes Romantica to Evernatten. As the food issue is partly solved, the vagrant mission progress goes up to 71%. Meanwhile, Wilhelm prays at a temple, and he is lost in thought. The number of vagrants has only grown, and many are fleeing go time. Just then, one of his men comes with a report from the Holy Kingdom, which shows things are not any better there, with taxes being collected in the name of the goddess, and rumors of missing children are everywhere. And the Emperor is doing absolutely nothing about it. It does not take Wilhelm long to figure out that this is not just a case of poor leadership, but rather it is about sacrificial offerings. With only one day left to figure things out, the pressure is tight on our boy. As snow piles up around him, he watches Lyrica happily building little snowmen. The sight is so touching it nearly brings him to tears. But Lyrica does not want his pity. To her, those snowmen are not just snow, but are like real friends from her hometown, the ones she knew before ending up here. She even talks about a friend named Carlos, who was taken away by ghosts. Just then, Romantica shows up and explains that these ghosts are known for abducting lonely people and, well, eating them. She has heard the rumors before, especially since she has lived near the Holy City, where Lyrica and most of the vagrants come from. Our hero, on the other hand, is clearly the only one who does not know this, and is now blaming himself for not thinking deeper when trying to solve the issue. The next day, everyone is gathered in Wilhelm's audience room. Wilhelm starts with a polite thanks to Romantica, but Aeolon ruins the moment with her usual annoying comments that it's way too soon to celebrate. Then Wilhelm turns to the MC and reminds him that his time to solve the problem has officially run out. But our boy, he has a plan, of course. In his opinion, sending the vagrants away and not letting them come back will surely fix the immediate problem. But he knows it won't last. The vagrants will keep showing up, and the kingdom will keep pretending that ignoring the problem is a good idea. But no worries, as the MC has a real solution, which is not anything groundbreaking, but it gets to the core of the issue, as the vagrants are not just running away from the cold. They are fleeing the cruel rules of the Holy City. And that cruelty will eventually come to Evernatten too, whether anyone likes it or not. He knows that the Holy Kingdom's capital is falling apart, and they are ignoring the threat of the Shadow World for the sake of old religious beliefs. That is not going to end well. History has already shown that the Holy Kingdom has collapsed because of the Shadow World. He knows all about it, thanks to his acquaintance in the last life, Priscilla, who has lived to see the Holy Kingdom fall, which is now just a pile of ruins. The few survivors that were left behind continue to believe in Artemis. So the MC insists that if they don't act now, the problems will just keep coming, and the vagrants will keep flooding in. A priest tries to protest, but a zest shuts him up. Wilhelm then turns to our boy and, with a serious look that gives everyone chills, asks if he is suggesting they start a revolution. Our hero can sense something is not quite right, and realizes that Wilhelm is not just asking about the current situation. He wants to know what our boy thinks of him personally. That is when it hits the MC that Wilhelm knows about all of this already. He just has not been able to do anything about it. Our hero asks if Wilhelm has ever raised his sword in the name of the Holy Kingdom, as he wants him to really think about it, about what he has been protecting all these years. That is when Wilhelm's memories come rushing back. He remembers a time when he was drunk, and Jeffrin had asked him why he worked so hard. So he answered that he wants nothing too grand, but just for everyone to be able to drink a cup of water without any worries. And now, thanks to our boy's little push, Wilhelm is reminded of his true purpose, that he has always been fighting for his people. Wilhelm Evernatten is a man with a single principle, which is to do whatever it takes for his people. Except when it comes to war, he hesitates because, unlike many leaders, Wilhelm actually thinks about the consequences. Pain, suffering, the whole war is a package that does not sit well with him. So, he turns to the MC to help him figure out whether starting a war is a good idea or just a disaster waiting to happen. As our boy takes his time to answer, Romantica tries to voice her opinion, but Aeolon immediately shuts her down, as she, as an outsider, is not allowed to speak in their sensitive matters. Then Azest gets straight to the point that sitting around doing nothing out of fear is the real problem. People are being sacrificed in the name of judgment, and they need to stop it as soon as possible. Our boy backs her up that it's time to act before things get even more out of hand. Wilhelm then asks Aeolon what she thinks. In Aeolon's opinion, marching into war against the Holy Kingdom is reckless and suicidal. Even if they have strong forces, their chances of winning are slim at best. Then Wilhelm shares some news. A feudal lord has reached out to him and offered to join forces. It's right that an alliance does not guarantee victory, but it's better than nothing. Our hero knows that other lords are probably just as guilty and hesitant. Then he reminds Wilhelm of his unwavering support for his people when everyone else abandoned them, and it's high time that they right the Holy Kingdom's wrongdoings. Wilhelm gets pumped up by the MC's words and then gives his orders to Eulun and Pram. They are to send statements to their knights and call out the Holy City's misdeeds. Our hero, meanwhile, is tasked with informing his territory that the Emperor's incompetence has officially reached its end. So, after what feels like forever, they are ready to roll. Troops, horses, knights, and of course, the leader himself, Wilhelm Evernatten. The knights he was friends with in the past are there too, and Wilhelm suggests they share a drink once the war is over. As they prepare, he gives a speech so motivational that even the most battle-worn troops cannot help but feel like they can take on the world. He promises victory, and with that, Wilhelm Evernatten is no longer just a hero. He is now Wilhelm Rudbehi Evernatten, the epic leader of the Holy Empire. After their victory, the story's main quest finally wraps up, and everyone returns to Herbian Academy. Now, celebratory banquet is going on, and Azest's entrance immediately steals the spotlight, as usual. Romantica tries to take our boy into dancing, but he confesses he cannot dance. Pram offers to teach him. Azest then joins them as well. Amid all the dancing chaos, they begin discussing the fall of the Holy Kingdom. Romantica thinks things could have turned out differently if the Holy Kingdom had not been so careless. The MC does not think it matters much, and guesses that half the continent would not have been overrun by the Shadow World. Pram, on the other hand, is still shocked by the history of Artemis and is curious if anyone had seen it coming. Our boy suggests that the Holy Kingdom probably wants to bury its embarrassing history. But Romantica, now bored of history talk, insists they move on and just dance already. Our hero suggests she dance with Pram since he has no idea how to. Azest, on the other hand, is enjoying a drink made from plum especially arranged by the MC as per her request in Evernatten. She then puts the glass down and suddenly asks our boy to dance. This leaves everyone stunned. Our hero looks completely shocked. Pram is upset that he has lost his chance at a first dance, and Romantica is downright angry. But Azest does not care, and she just wants to teach our boy how to dance, and the MC agrees. He promises to let her know that he really cannot dance. Meanwhile, in a dark, shady hideout, a man and a woman complain about Kraken messing up and getting caught. Another figure, with a skeletal mask, blames interference from Herbian Academy. And then another masked figure shows up. In a collapsing world full of screams and chaos, our hero holds onto Romantica's hand as she begs not to die. Both of them then plunge into deep water, where our boy has the pleasure of locking eyes with the terrifying devil of destruction, Den Dainuf. He then wakes up suddenly, gasping for air and drenched in sweat. It was just a dream, or rather a memory he has stuffed into the back of his mind and tries to forget. But judging by his shaking hands, it's clear he is not fooling anyone, not even himself. Now in the lecture hall, Romantica and Azest greet him like everything is fine, even though the MC looks like he has not slept in ages. They get curious about what happened, and he admits he had a nightmare. Romantica then brings up her own dream, or more like a nightmare, in which our hero appeared as a demon lord, of all things. She then hands him a candy to help him stay awake for Brigitte's class, though even candy won't save him from that torture. The topic then shifts to summer vacation plans. Romantica is heading home to visit her parents, while Azest plans to stay at school, and our boy is going to the Prilicha Kingdom, which just so happens to be where Romantica's family lives. So he plans out that their team will compete in the Yellow Ocean competition, a big event for young talents under 20 there. Romantica is not convinced and points out how ridiculously skilled the competitors in that competition are. Our hero compliments her skills. She lights up for a second, and then he reminds her not to get too cocky, and her face gets sad. The MC then decides to ask Pram about their plan, though everyone knows Pram will agree without a second thought. Just as Romantica gets all happy for the free time, our hero declares that there will be no rest from training, and Romantica's hopes get crushed. Our boy insists that they need to train for the competition, something she has just admitted herself that they are lacking. She tries arguing they deserve a break after clearing the Shadow World, but he pulls out the terms of the contract card, which leaves her no choice but to agree. As things calm down, the MC's thoughts return to his dream in which he saw Romantica's desperate plea not to die. His heart starts racing again, and he buries his face in his desk and starts breathing heavily. Romantica and Azest give him concerned looks, but he gets a hold of himself and blames it on the candy. Romantica then notices him staring at her, and his response nearly makes her explode. He wants her to train twice as hard. She freaks out and shouts about how she will never get any sleep, but the MC remains unbothered. With that, he stands up and moves to sit beside Azest, as he silently vows that he won't let the past repeat itself. Altea, which is famously called as the center of magical engineering, owes its success to the Mage's Tower. This city-state was not always a symbol of progress. It was once the capital of Kuma Marelson, a kingdom of the Mado civilization. But when the kingdom crumbled, so did its magical reputation. Thankfully, the Mage's Tower came to the rescue like a knight in shining armor and restored their lost magic by blending it with cutting-edge technology. The tower then became a hotspot for mages who love sharing knowledge, except when it comes to the mysterious Room of Dreams. That workshop, rumored to house all the cool toys, is strictly off-limits because it belongs to none other than the Tower Master, Zod Exarian, who does not like sharing his shiny stuff. Currently, Zod is occupied in yet another fascinating discovery, all while half listening to Saintess Priscilla during their rare conversation. It has been months since they last spoke, but Zod has found a shiny artifact, and that is more important to him than catching up with the Saintess. Priscilla, bless her patience, tries her best to pull his attention back, but it does not work. The topic then shifts to a competition. Zod, who rarely leaves his workshop, actually plans to attend this one because the tech advisor, our boy, is going to be there. Upon hearing that, Priscilla is so shocked that she cannot stop laughing. She thinks Zod might have lost his mind. But Zod reminds her that our hero is not just anyone, but he is the top student from Herbian Academy and the best of the best. And also, the MC is not representing the Academy this time, but instead the Mage's Tower. Their chat then turns to a recent Shadow World incident where our boy's team uncovered the mystery behind the fall of the Snow Country. Since Priscilla has been obsessively researching this topic, Zod suggests she hear the story directly from our hero. She agrees, and the call ends with her looking forward to meeting him. Meanwhile, in the outdoor arena, Pram and Kira are busy training, and there is someone else as well, the MC. About 20 minutes earlier, our boy has decided it is time for a little sparring with Pram, with Kira as the referee. Pram is a bit hesitant because fighting our hero does not sound like a great idea. Kira, however, does not get his nervousness as it's not like it's just any mage, it's the MC. Our boy, on the other hand, just wants Pram to fight like it matters, and without any holding back. Finally, the fight begins, and the MC immediately starts using magic, like it's no big deal. Pram, however, is still doubting himself, that he has no chance. But Kira reminds him that our boy actually respects him, so he had better show up and prove it. And with that, the battle between Desire Herman and Pram Schneiser is officially underway. Pram knows one thing for sure. The MC's magic takes a while to kick in. Unlike Romantica, who can cast a spell in a flash, our boy needs some time, and Pram is not about to stand around waiting. So, he rushes ahead, while leaving our hero lost in his calculations. Our boy, on the other hand, cannot help but notice that Pram is faster than his spell calculations, which is a little unsettling but still manageable for him. He figures giving Pram room will buy him time, but there is one tiny problem. Pram can come at him from any direction. The MC is not about to throw magic around recklessly and look like a fool missing his target. So, our hero decides to cast a fireball and thinks that it will catch Pram off guard, but Pram is already ready for it. The explosion breaks the arena tiles, and our boy is a bit shocked as he did not expect it to be so intense. Pram then explains that the tiles are so fragile that even a small shake will make them fall apart. The MC then realizes that Pram has lowered his stance and aimed the magic straight down to block his view. Before our hero can process this unexpected turn of events, Pram charges at him with his sword, all while claiming that there is no magic more predictable than a fast swordsman who blocks one's sight. Pram then declares his victory with his sword pointed at our boy, who cannot help but think back to a memory of his past. Back then, Donive wanted to fight him, and Donive's punch was so fast, the MC barely dodged it. Donive finds our hero weak, so he still wants to fight him to help him grow stronger. Our boy now realizes he has not exactly become the powerhouse Donive envisioned, but he has still learnt a lot from that fight. He then summons the Aslan Mutu technique and hits Pram's sword with a single hand, which falls to the ground like a forgotten toy. Pram, on the other hand, has no idea what just happened, and the MC's move completely takes him by surprise. But Pram is not one to give up so easily. He rushes at our hero again, but our boy just smiles and is ready for round 2. Kira, who is watching their right with great interest, tries to decode what is happening. With a swift move, the MC grabs Pram from both sides and pins him on the ground. He then gets up and apologizes for using too much force, but Pram is more curious than ever about what our hero has done. So our boy explains that it is a technique he has learnt, one that allows him to deflect his opponent's attack and send it right back at them. Kirag is impressed, and he cannot help but want to try his luck against the MC as well. After what feels like an endless series of life-or-death training sessions, the vacation finally arrives. Romantica is heading home first and reminds the team not to be late. A few days go by, and now at the Herbian Academy's train station, our hero's group is finally ready to catch the train to the Prelecha Kingdom. The Outers are a messy bunch of groups that only have one thing in common. They hate the League of Western Kingdoms and the Herbian Empire. Calling them a team is being way too generous, as it's more like a bunch of people who don't like each other but hate their enemies even more. They don't really have the same goals or plans, but just the shared vibe of being fed up with how things are. In some dark and gloomy hideout, one of these groups is having a meeting. Piero, who we can call their sarcastic loudmouth, is doing his thing, that is, getting on everyone's nerves. This time, he is poking fun at Revolutionary, whose guy, apparently Kraken, has recently been caught. Piero's constant teasing finally hits a nerve, and Revolutionary loses his temper and tries to fry him with magic. But Piero, being the annoying guy he is, comes out of it completely fine, and even starts joking about how the Tower Master is probably digging into his guy's secrets with magic. Before things get even messier, the guy with the skull mask interrupts and reminds them to stop fighting and get back to why they are actually there. Then he turns to Revolutionary and points out that his perfect plan has gone completely wrong as the enemy has seen it coming a mile away. Still, Skullmask tries to see the silver lining that it is the perfect time to stop hiding and make their presence known before their enemies grow too comfortable. Piero gets all excited to finally have something fun to do after sitting around all day. Then he points out that they cannot take on both the League of the Western Kingdoms and the Herbian Academy at the same time, and Skullmask finally shares his plan. The League's upcoming competition is the perfect chance to stir up some trouble, and Revolutionary is the one to do it. As for Piero, the Skull Mask wants him to hand over an artifact he has worked hard to find to Revolutionary. This obviously leads to some dramatic whining by Piero, and then he finally tosses it over. With that, the meeting is over. Revolutionary storms off but is followed by Piero, who appears to be not done being annoying. Revolutionary ignores him at first, but Piero is not one to shut up. Finally, Revolutionary snaps when Piero accuses him of being just like the rest of them. Piero remarks that none of them could return home without facing execution, and that taking the artifact makes him just as culpable as anyone else. Revolutionary, however, insists he has noble reasons for his actions. Upon hearing that, Piero can feel that Revolutionary is starting to sound like Skullmask, who has spent years scheming to reshape the world in the name of some goddess. He also points out the irony of Revolutionary trying to make a better world for the commoners while using shady artifacts. He calls out the hypocrisy of pretending to be a hero while acting no better than the rest of them. Revolutionary is unwilling to continue the baseless argument, so he just walks away. Piero, however, warns him that if he messes up, he will cut his head off like he did the King of Violetta. Now alone, Piero anticipates the real chaos that is about to go down in the Prilicia Kingdom. Meanwhile, far from the Outer's scheming, another group has arrived at the Prilicia Kingdom, and that is our boys' party. They are greeted warmly by a servant of Romantica who is waiting for them.